Hello and welcome to Atlanta, Georgia. Well, 49 hours from now, we're going to celebrate the start of the college football playoff with number 1 LSU and number 4 Oklahoma just down the road here at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. We're here today at the College Football Hall of Fame. And boys and girls, if you haven't been here, you need to get here. This is a very, very special place. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Tony Barnhart, sitting in for Paul Finebaum. And we miss Paul, but I want to tell you that he had a little bit of a battle with the kidney stones, and we have given him a couple of days off to rest up and get ready for the stretch drive of the college football season. But I traded messages with Paul earlier this week. He's resting. He's at home. He says everything looks good, and he looks forward to being back in this chair very, very soon. One other piece of advice or news I want to share with you today, this carnation here represents our friend Ed Ashoff. If you didn't know Ed Ashoff, he was one of the rising stars at ESPN, and we lost him at the age of 34 on Christmas Eve. We're going to be talking about Ed Ashoff later on in this show today with a couple of people of our ESPN family who knew him very, very well. So please stay tuned for that. Till now, let's go with the headlines of the day. It has been a busy day here in Atlanta, Georgia. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the #1 story right now. He remains questionable for the game against Oklahoma. Ed Orgeron said during the media days today that he hopes he's going to play. He's a day-to-day wait and see. We're going to have some guests who will do that. Listen, Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been so good down the stretch. He has become an incredible weapon for Joe Burrow. If you watch the Alabama game, if you watch the SEC championship game against Georgia, he is an absolute superstar. Joe Burrow, is there anything this guy can't do? He helped LSU win a friendly Christmas basketball competition versus Oklahoma. This guy was an incredible high school athlete, so he's already getting in his licks early on. Joe Burrow, the Heisman Trophy winner. Jalen Hurts says he is still feeling the love from Alabama fans entering the Peach Bowl. It's interesting, folks. Every place I've been, the Alabama people talk about Jalen Hurts and what he has done for that university. Obviously, he is now facing one of the most improving defenses in the country. Look at the first 10 games, points per game, the last 3 games, and that includes the SEC championship game at Georgia, only 12.3. Yards per game, 341 down to 253. Not too bad. Rushing yards, 120 to 82, and sacks around 4.0. LSU linebacker Patrick Queen had a pretty good idea of what his team could do against Oklahoma.
Goal line's not great, the back's not great, but they still make it work. Jalen Hurts is a great quarterback, CeeDee Lamb's a great wide receiver, so I feel like we just get the ball out of Jalen's hands and try to make other people make plays. And I feel like our defense can make plays in space, so I feel like with this game plan we got, we're going to dominate them, and I feel very confident in what we got.
And as he said, we're going to dominate them. I think that'll make its way back to Oklahoma. We are here for the next 4 hours to take your calls at 855-242-7285. We have a wonderful lineup of guests, and it starts just like this. Myron Metcalf and Chris Lowe, colleagues of Ed Ashoff, will be here at 3:30 to talk about the late Ed Ashoff, one of the best college football writers in the country, if not the best. Bruce Feldman of The Atlantic. He'll have some thoughts about Ed Ashoff and how this game shakes up. Laura Rutledge, always glad to sit down and talk to Laura. Laura will join us about 4:15. Mark Slabaugh of ESPN will join us, and he did a little reporting today about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Chris Doring, my man, my colleague at the SEC Network, college football analyst Barrett Salih. At 5:30 of CBS Sports, this is the home game for Barrett and the wonderful Holly Rowe. She is absolutely the best. We look forward to talking to her. I'd say, all right, we've already got some calls. Let's take some calls. Who we got? Dave in Baton Rouge. Hello, Dave. Tony Barnhart here.
Hey, Tony, what's going on this morning?
Well, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. No, listen, I got a home game here in Atlanta, Georgia. I get to talk to you about ball today. Who's got it better than us?
I tell you what, nobody, and you've been a Tiger fan this year, it couldn't get no better. You know, I started talking to Paul in July about this season, and he looked at me like I was a one-eyed monkey, just another Tiger fan talking hysterically about what this year was going to be. But, you know, after 10 years, you finally get it right one year, don't you, Tony?
Well, and here's the thing, Dave, is that a couple of things had to fall into place for LSU, and they all fell into place. Number one, Ed Orgeron won 10 games last year at LSU. Most coaches would say, you know what, 10 games, that's pretty good. We don't need to make any changes. But guess what? He went out and he made the change. He walked into Steve Ensminger's office and said, I'm bringing in a 29-year-old guy to help with this. Then all of a sudden, Joe Burrow finds himself with a perfect offense to his skill set. And as the season has come along, this team has gotten better. And, you know, that's why Ed Orgeron was very deserving, Dave, of getting the Coach of the Year.
No doubt whatsoever. Listen, we are so excited here in Baton Rouge about all this. But here's what I wanted to talk to about, Tony. We've talked all week about Edward Allaire. Whether he plays or not, we got enough depth at running back that this isn't going to be the end-all, be-all. If Clyde doesn't play and we don't make it through this game, Clyde won't be the reason we don't make it through this game. You know, we've got three running backs that could start as freshmen, three backups that could start anywhere in the SEC, with exception to Alabama maybe. But we're loaded at running back. No, they don't have the experience. But we got a five-star kid who was number one recruit last year, but hadn't seen
John
the
Emery.
field. But
John Emery,
he's seen the field 39 times this year. So I'm not stressed. I promise you, I'm more stressed about our defense defending the Oklahoma quarterback than I am whether Clyde plays or not. And I think whether LSU's defense can defend Oklahoma's quarterback will be a much bigger issue in the game than whether Clyde plays or not, if you want to know the truth.
Well, Dave, I agree with you because look, let's look at it honestly. The one flaw we saw in the LSU defense was giving up running by the quarterback. We saw what John Rice Plumlee did against LSU. LSU, of course, was coming off the Alabama game. But if I'm an LSU fan, that's the thing that concerns me is that Jalen Hurts is going to maintain possession with his legs, move the chain, eat up clock, and my offense at LSU does not get as many possessions. If I'm an LSU fan, I agree with you, Dave. That's what I'm worried about.
They say Coach O, and I get this pretty straight from the horse's mouth, they say Coach O has a different attitude about this than a lot of people. They say he doesn't want to hear he might get by Oklahoma or not, and whether he's going to play Clyde or not. Personally, I wish he would sit Clyde and see what comes out of Ohio State and Clemson, because we're going to need Clyde picking up blitzes at Clemson and Ohio State a lot more, and we're going to need him against Oklahoma. But the advantage to that is if you don't get past Oklahoma, it doesn't matter anyway. So you know where we're at.
Well, very good. Well, Dave, I appreciate the call.
All right, thank you, and y'all have a good time over there. I'm looking forward to the game and to the rest of your show, Tony. Thank you.
All right, we appreciate that. Hey, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're here to take your calls at 855-242-7285. This is Tony Barnhart sitting in for Paul Finebaum. This is the Paul Finebaum Show.
Job. I mean, it's not about me. It's not our team. It's about the state of Louisiana. And when you come to LSU, the expectations are high. And obviously, when you have the amount of talent we have on this football team and the great coaches that we have, these are expectations that you have to meet at LSU. Obviously, proud of our football team. This is not our final destination. We came here for a playoff game, and we're looking forward to playing a great Oklahoma team. Yeah, he hasn't practiced yet. He may practice a little bit today. We're not sure yet if he is going to practice. He's questionable for the game. I do believe that there's any shot of him being cleared to play medically. That if our trainers and doctors say that he can play, I think he is going to try. I don't know what's going to happen. I hope he does play. Well, you look at what they've done over the years. They've done a phenomenal job of staying on top. And as they say, it's hard to get there, but it's even harder to stay up there. So we have to remain focused. You have to block out the noise. There have been a lot of accolades for this team already. That's not going to win a football game for you. It's about fundamentals, about getting better, staying hungry with a great mindset. I do believe we have the coaching staff. I do believe we have the focus to do that. And again, these guys are not satisfied. Although we've had some success this year, they're not satisfied. I think it's a direct result of our success. We were so far behind, and I knew it. And I didn't think we was giving our team a fair advantage. Now we have the power, we have the knowledge, we have advanced scouting, we have analysts that are breaking down everything we're doing, breaking down our opponent. We have answers for our players. Our coaches are able to get more information a lot quicker and put the game plan in a lot quicker. They play the spread every day. They play the spread in their conference. They know what they're doing. The biggest accomplishment to me for Oklahoma's defense is allowing only 24 points per game in that league, where guys are scoring 50 all the time. So what a tremendous accomplishment. But the middle linebacker is one of the best guys we've seen, obviously. He can run down, make plays in space. Their defensive line is very quick and agile, and what they do, they stun almost every down. So you got to pick up those stunts. If you don't, they're negative plays. I think a combination of that and outstanding coverage makes them a very, very good defense.
All right, boys and girls, everybody's got their top five in this game, their top five list of storylines. Here's mine. What Jalen Hurts has done, the Oklahoma quarterback, the transfer from Alabama, when he takes a snap in this game on Saturday, it'll be the fourth straight college football playoff semifinal he's been in. And it's amazing. And if Oklahoma were to upset LSU, that means that Jalen Hurts will have played some part in 4 consecutive CFP national championship games. Nobody's ever done that. Incredible. Joe Burrow, he's chasing more history. Here's a couple of numbers to keep in mind about Joe Burrow. Number one number is 285. What's 285? 285 is the number of yards he needs to get to 5,000 yards this season. Needless to say, no quarterback in the history of the SEC has ever thrown for 5,000 yards in the season. Another number, 77.9. That is Joe Burrow's completion percentage. And if you think that's the highest of all time in a season, you are absolutely right. If he can maintain that 77.9, he will set the NCAA record that was held by Colt McCoy at Texas in 2008. We'll be talking about this all day, to play or not to play. Will Clyde Edwards-Helaire suit up and play in this game? We talked to Coach O. A bunch of people talked to Coach O today, said he really hasn't practiced and he's going to wait and see how he does later on. If he can go, he's going to give it a try. The question is, would you hold him out so he'll be ready against Ohio State or Clemson if LSU wins the game? Missing in action, Sooners. They've suspended 3 guys before this game. One of them, Ronnie Perkins, their absolute best pass rusher. They've also lost Delarian Turner-Yell, who's their best safety. He's out with a bad collarbone. And finally, Lincoln Riley versus Dave Aranda. Lincoln Riley's one of the best play callers. The head coach at Oklahoma is considered one of the best offensive minds of this generation, going against one of the highest paid defensive coordinator in all of college football. So I think that matchup will be an incredible one to watch. We're back here at the College Football Hall of Fame. Tony Barnhart sitting in for Paul Finebaum. And for the next 3.5, 4 hours, we're here to take your calls at 855-242-7285. Brams, let's go to Matt in Ohio. Matt, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Thanks for calling.
Merry Christmas to you, too. I come from Ohio State fan. I know the Clemson game's going to be close, competitive. But does Oklahoma even have a chance against LSU with those 3 players out?
Well, I think, Matt, Oklahoma has a shot against LSU, but it doesn't help that they've lost those players. I mean, Oklahoma's best shot, and we talked about this earlier, is for them to be able to control the football with Jalen Hurts, cut LSU's number of possessions down by 2, maybe even 3 in a game. We saw LSU give up a ton of yards rushing to Ole Miss back early in the year. John Rice Plumlee, the quarterback, had some big numbers in that game. So if you're looking for a roadmap to Oklahoma, there it is. Having said all that, I think LSU is going to win the game. If Joe Burrow has his vintage kind of game, I think LSU is just too talented, just too explosive on the offensive side of the ball.
Right, I agree. That's why it was so important for Ohio State to get that 1 seed. They can play Oklahoma rather than Clemson. It didn't happen for it.
Well, there's no question, Matt, that the number 1 seed was going to have an advantage, and that's why it's a big deal. All right, do we have another call? Brams, who we got? Jason in Mississippi. I just got back from Mississippi. Jason, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. What a Christmas. Man, yesterday the NBA gave me every present that I wished for.
Well, there you go. There you go. What part of Mississippi are you from?
I live in Hattiesburg. I'm from Louisiana.
There you go. Very good. So
Look,
what can I do for you today?
Man, I got a couple predictions about the bowl games, but without Mr. Finebaum, me being able to try to gig him on a little bit, I'm going to leave most of it out. I will say one thing. Everybody giving LSU these 14 points. Jalen Hurts is better than Plumlee. They shut Plumlee down in the first half, but in the second half, I think the defense kind of let up. The LSU defense hasn't played 60 minutes, not one game this year. And I think it's going to be closer than people think. My prediction for the LSU-Oklahoma game is going to be about 8 points, and that's going to be because of Jalen Hurts.
Well, like we said earlier, if Jalen Hurts is going to play a big part of this football game for Oklahoma. Now, the thing about it is, can that Oklahoma defense they're better than they were a year ago. Let's put it that way, and they haven't given up the number of points that they did a year ago. So they are better, but is it good enough? Is it good enough against Joe Burrow and all those wide receivers? And the fact that they score, almost 47, 48 points a game. If they can get that game, I'll tell you what, Jason, I'll tell you the same thing I said, that if you can get LSU to play in the 20s, then you've got a shot. Okay, Auburn was able to do that. If LSU gets in the 30s and 40s, as good as Oklahoma is, I don't think they can win that game.
Well, I hear what you're saying, Mr. Barnhart, but I also remember the post-game interview with Joe Burrow after the Ole Miss game when they told him once they got to 38 points they were going to pull him. And then he went in because Plumlee had that great run, and all of a sudden Ole Miss started getting on a roll, and Joe goes in and he was batting 500 on his passes. He said his teammates and his coaches had to get him back in game mode. And I think that happens during these games is once you get so big of a lead, then you tend to lay off. And I think that's what's going to happen. I don't believe that Oklahoma's going to – I don't think they have a prayer in the first half. I think in the second half they're going to play 60 minutes of football, but will LSU play 60 minutes of football? That is my – and another
Jason,
thing, about these, we can look at the regular season, and, a lot of people complain about officiating, and I don't think ever that it's bad officiating. I think officials give teams the benefit of doubt because of the talent on the field. That being said, when a team gets the benefit of the doubt more than their opponent and they lose a game, it kind of shows that, how battle-tested are they? LSU didn't get the benefit of the doubt in any game this year that I saw, which to me makes them a very battle-tested team. Now, I couldn't stomach those Clemson games. Clemson just annihilated everybody. I didn't watch those, but I did watch Ohio State. And every time somebody started gaining momentum, a benefit of the doubt call or two would change back the momentum to theirs. That being said, I think Clemson is going to beat Ohio State by 30. And I know a lot of people think I'm crazy.
Well, Jason, that's a lot of points. Let me tell you this, Jason, I appreciate you calling. To me, that's a lot of points. But I tell you what, I am picking Clemson to win that football game. Folks, we're going to take a break on radio right now. For those of you on TV, hang with us. We want to give you a special presentation about our friend Ed Aschoff of the ESPN family, who passed away Christmas Eve at the age of 34. In the next Ed Aschoff, at the age of 34, a graduate of the University of Florida, came to the ESPN family as a very young reporter, and he was considered to be a rising star. He moved to Atlanta early in his career. We call him the ATL kid. He was doing so much good in his career. He had gotten engaged to Katie. They were going to get married in April. One of his final pieces for ESPN was with the Edwards-Hilaire family. This is a tweet from his mother, thanking you. My heart is heavy. I had the honor of meeting this great human being. A smile as bright and beautiful as the sun with a personality to match. He said Clyde was a joy to interview. We talked a great deal. As you can see, it's the mother and nurse in me. We're going to play that piece from Edwards, from Edward Aschoff right now for you. Talk about it now. Welcoming you back to the College Football Hall of Fame. I'm Tony Barnhart, sitting in for Paul Finebaum. And we're going to bring on two members of our ESPN family who were very close to Ed Aschoff. Of course, Chris Lowe, you all know from his work at ESPN, one of my dear friends. And, of course, Myron Medcoff, a very, very talented young man who's been with ESPN for a while. Chris and Myron, thank you for joining us to talk about Ed. Chris, let me start with you. I mean, you and I traded text messages this week, and the sense of loss is just incredible. And it was such at our time of life, you're not surprised by much, but Chris, this was a stunner.
Well, Tony, first of all, thank you for having me, and it is, and because Ed was so full of life. I mean, you could spend 2 minutes around Edward, and he was the life of the party. You know, he just brightened every room. And I still remember the first time I met him. He came up to me in the Florida press box, probably just a few years out of school at Florida. He was covering recruiting in the Gators in for the Gainesville Sun, and he introduced himself to me. And immediately you knew there was just something about it. You know, the way he just radiated, and his smile. I mean, that smile of his is forever burned in my mind, and I loved him dearly. He was the closest thing I had to a baby brother in this business, and you're right, it hit us all hard, and it's something that's going to, unfortunately, it's something that none of us are going to get over for a long, long time.
Myron, you know, when I think about Ed, you always he usually had the flower in his lapel. Had a bow tie, was immaculately dressed, and as Chris said, he always seemed to have a smile for everybody.
Yeah, he did. I mean, to Chris's point, he had a presence. You know, I mean, he really had a presence. I think in this sports business, you know, especially when you work for an ESPN, you're used to maybe being one of the cool kids, someone that maybe your friends admire, but Ed was a real cool kid. I mean, he was a guy who, no matter who you were, when he walked into a room, you kind of just paid attention. You almost waited to see what he might do. And it wasn't like he tried to be that. He just was. And that's the thing I love the most about Ed was just the idea that, like, this wasn't a show. It wasn't an act. It was just who he was. And that's why I think just so many people respected him and so many people are just devastated by this.
Chris, one of the things all of us look for in other reporters is how versatile are they? Can they write well? Can they communicate on television? Do they know how to phrase their sentences? I just saw Ed as a guy who absolutely could do it all, and there was nothing in the communications business that he could not do, and he proved it at a very early age.
Tony, he connected with people like very few people I've known in the business, and you're right. I mean, he was like that the first time I met him when he was 25. I don't care where you're from, what part of the country, what your culture was, your background. Ed just related to people, and that shone through in everything he did. He cared so deeply about people, and it showed through in his reporting, his storytelling, his ability to get people to trust him. Ed was a really nice guy. As Myron said, you wanted to be around Edward, but he could be a dogged reporter. He wasn't afraid to ask tough questions. He wasn't afraid to go after things, and stay on things. And that's why I respect him so much. The versatility you're talking about is he could tell that heartwarming story, right, and gain the trust of the people to let him in and tell that story. And yet he was also tough enough and dogged enough to go after stories that also needed to be told.
Myron, let's talk about that a second about Ed. Is that it's, as you know, it's not easy to be a tough reporter and to still get people to trust you. In this day and age, people, if you're a tough reporter, people are very, very measured about what they say around you. But as Chris mentioned, Myron, Ed just had a way of gaining people's trust.
Yeah, and I think it was because he was just so genuine as a person. After that Clyde Edwards-Helaire story, he sent me this text message with a photo of him standing with the family, and he was just so proud, and they were all smiling. He was so proud of that story, and you trusted who he was as a person, and I think that's why he was able to make some of those connections to get people to open up. I mean, the reporter Ed was great, amazing, but my tears have been about my friend, and I think that's the reason why you're seeing this reaction from a lot of people is we lost a colleague, but we all lost a friend, and that's the part that is I'm not sure how we get past that, because Ed was really that genuine friend to so many people.
And Myron, let me follow up with you. Had you had a chance to meet Katie, his fiance?
I had not, but I was on the way to the wedding, and excited for that. I know how excited he was when she proposed to him.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, Katie and Edward were going to be married in April in New Orleans. Chris, we'll close with you. I mean, we've all mentored young reporters. We all look for special young people, and we want the best for them. It's just really difficult to see somebody's life come to an end and light get turned out so young.
Well, and Edward was a light. I know Myron can attest to this. When we would meet up in Connecticut for meetings with ESPN, he was the Pied Piper. Everybody wanted to be around him. He was the one that organized where we were going to go, whatever activity was going on. He was that kind of person. And that's why, and Myron's dead on. He was he's one of those people that you meet in life, you run across, and you thank God that you had a chance to know an Edward Ashaw, what he meant to us. And what he was younger than me, and we worked together, as you know, Tony, on that SEC blog for several years. We talked probably 5-6 times a day for 4 or 5 years every day because we were feeding that beast, that SEC block. And we had countless conversations about everything, not just sports, but politics and life and relationships. And I learned more, much, much more from Edward Aschoff than he'd ever did me. You know, he was just a guy that in every way he opened your heart. And I can tell you this, I'm a better person for having known Edward Aschoff.
That's a good place for us to close it out. Chris Lowe, Myron Metcalf, thanks for joining us and talking to us. I think our folks at home know a lot more about Ed Aschoff than they did before we started. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you. All right, we're going to take a break now. When we come back, we're here to take your calls at 855.
I'm here with maybe the best wide receiving duo in the nation. I wonder if you guys can say definitively yes or no. Best receiving duo in the nation? What do we think?
We're going to say yes, not to be cocky, but to be confident in ourselves.
Okay. How about you?
I'll say the same. Just being able to, go on the field and put up the numbers that we have. I mean, a lot of duos don't have the numbers that we have. So just being able to say that we're the best duo in the country is a success for us.
Okay, so I know a lot of people are excited about Joe Burrow and his numbers and his accuracy numbers, and they should be. But you guys make some great catches for him. How are you there for your quarterback? You are really there for him.
We always got to be there for Joe. Just putting the ball wherever he needs to put it, and we're going up and catch it. So that's just shouting out Coach Joe Brady just for working on our hands and being able to go up and catch balls like that.
Okay, speaking of the hands, I just saw some kind of shake. What was the super secret shake? Show it to me.
You want to see?
I want to see it. What is this?
That's our sauce right here.
Oh, it is a little, is it Cajun sauce?
I was on game. I ain't mess up.
I like the secret sauce. Okay, you guys are also known for your touchdown dances, celebrations. Now, you're not going to do that and get a penalty, right?
We're gonna see. We're gonna see when we get to the game. But we definitely got something if they let us showboat a little bit.
Can you show me just like a baby preview? Like, give me a little. I'm a good dancer. I feel like I could be in on it a little bit.
You want to hop in this with us?
Get it. Go. Let's go. Go. What is it? Yeah.
I'm serious.
I'm serious.
All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
Just go like this.
Yep.
Then start to jump.
I feel like we could do more flavor up on the top, though. That's it? That's all?
You guys like you jumping rope. Just came up with that one.
Oh.
Or you can do the twist. You can do the twist one.
Okay.
Yeah, we got like 3 of them.
Yeah, we have a lot.
You had another little robot-looking one, or like Fortnite-looking one. Nothing?
Which one?
You did it at Ole Miss, and you didn't get in trouble for it.
This one?
Yes.
Hey, Bob.
Fact.
Bop. Bop. Oh.
Hey.
See, I knew you guys were showing me the boring ones. I knew there was more flavor. All right. Bob and Weave. All right. This is the best wide receiving duo in the country. Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. Thanks for showing me some stuff.
Thank you.
All right, and welcome back to the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta, Georgia, where a little bit less than 48 hours, just down the road at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, we're going to have number 1 LSU and number 4 Oklahoma playing in the college football playoff semifinals. Obviously, Clemson and Ohio State play in the second semifinal that night. This is Tony Barnhart sitting in for Paul Finebaum. Hope you had a Merry Christmas and a happy and healthy new year. For the next 3.5 hours or so, we're here to take your calls at 855-242-7285. 855-242-7285. We've got some time for some callers now. Let's go to Dave in Texas. Hello, Dave. It's Tony Barnhart. Dave, are you with us?
My dad was a high school football coach here in Texas for 23 years. Hello?
Yes, sir, Dave. I'm with you. You're a high school coach for 22 years.
22 years here in the state of Texas, great state of Texas. But throughout all my life, I've never known a man that I really wanted to know any more than Coach O. I believe he's a fine man, and I really want to give him a shout-out knowing that he shows his emotions to his players. and to the world, and you don't find many guys from that walk of life that will cry on TV with his players. But I really admire the man. I'm going to have to change ways. I was born in Durant, Oklahoma, but I believe I'm going to have to holler for LSU.
Well, listen, Ed Orgeron there were a bunch of great stories surrounding this LSU team, and obviously Joe Burrow from Ohio and the Heisman Trophy winner is one of them. Ed Orgeron was the National Coach of the Year for good reason. He took chances. There were people when Ed Orgeron got the LSU job full time. There were people who absolutely mocked the hire, and for him to come back and to make the moves and hire the right people and recruit the right players to get LSU into this position is an extraordinary story. And Dave, it sounds like he's connected to you.
Yes, most definitely. Well, my father always coached his players like they were his sons, and I believe Ed Orgeron does the same thing.
Well, very good. Well, Dave, I appreciate you calling. Good luck to you.
All right. Go Tigers.
Or as Coach Orgeron would say, go Tigers. Absolutely.
That's it.
All right, let's go. Thank you, Dave. Let's go to Uncle Spike here in the great state of Georgia. Uncle Spike, you there?
Yo, hey, Tony.
Good to hear from. What part of Georgia are you from?
I live down here in Albany. I'm about 2.5 hours southwest of you.
I know it well. One of my fraternity brothers, Robbie Chester, lives down there. So that's a
I'm
big,
sorry.
big.
Look, I grew up in Louisiana.
Yep.
And I just want to say two things. Tell Paul to feel better, because what he's going through right now is no fun.
Yep. No.
Here helps.
Yep. Yeah. It is tough, but Paul was in good spirits when I traded messages with him the other day, so we look forward to having.
Thank you for filling in for him.
Absolutely. So, what do you think about the game on Saturday?
Well, here's the deal. Okay, everybody's freaking out about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Okay, and they forget that we've got 3 other running backs that are hosses as well.
Yep.
Okay.
John Emery was the number 1 recruit in the country, was he not?
Yeah.
Yep.
But I mean, they've all got at least 100 yards over the season. I just think everybody's flipping out about nothing. First, second, go Tigers, man. We're coming. I mean, it's done. We still got work to do.
Yep, there's no doubt. There's no doubt.
And,
so what? So you like LSU in this game significantly?
Yeah, the tiger in me wants to say we're going to hang 60 points on them, which is not undoable. You know what I mean? But Oklahoma's got a good team. They got a great quarterback. They got a great defense. It's going to be an interesting football game.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt. We talked about this earlier. The key is LSU's ability to defend Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is going to get his yards, but you can't let the guy run for 250 yards. If he does and moves the chains, then this game is going to be closer than a lot of people think.
Oh, yeah. But, see, everybody keeps going back to the Ole Miss game when Plumlee went nuts, right?
Yep.
After that, when the committee dissed them over their defense, it all changed, man. That defense is focused now.
Well, the defense is focused. Look, and I tell you something else. I tried to tell people. I said, look, LSU, when they played Ole Miss, was coming off arguably one of the biggest wins in the history of the school. Okay, there was no way they could get back up to that same level to play Ole Miss. And Rice Plumlee is he is incredibly fast and did a great job.
Yes,
but you had to put that game into its context. Okay, so that's what I think. Hey, listen, I got to run. Take one more call. Thanks.
Hey, man.
Thanks,
for
Uncle
everything.
Spike.
Y'all be safe. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, Uncle Spike. Let's go to Justin in Georgia as we sort of work towards the break. Justin? What can I do for you?
How you doing? My players go out to the ESPN family. I got to meet him last month at the Alabama game, and my players go out to him, and I think LSU is going to win 45-17, and Clemson's going to win and beat LSU 45-20.
So you like Clemson to win it all, huh?
Yes, sir.
Well, I tell you what, I got Clemson beating Ohio State right now, and right now I would go with LSU over Clemson. But you think LSU and Clemson in New Orleans? You think they got a chance to sell all the tickets for that one?
Yes, sir.
So we will see. All right, listen, Justin, thanks for calling. Please call back, folks. We're going to take a break here. When we come back, we are hoping to be joined by Bruce Feldman of the Atlantic. Welcome back to Atlanta, Georgia, here of the site of the college football playoff semifinal game between number 1 LSU and number 4 Oklahoma, set for 8 p.m. on Saturday night. We're here at the College Football Hall of Fame, just down the road from Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and we are pleased to be joined by Bruce Feldman, one of our very best writers from The Athletic. Bruce, thanks for being here. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Always great to see you, Tony.
Thank you, sir. Before we get into the football end of this, I know you were very close to Ed Ashoff. You'd been to his graduation, his
engagement.
Engagement,
yeah.
Thank you. The engagement party, and knew him well. I just can't stress how all of us were shocked at his passing.
Yeah, I mean, I think for so much of us, he felt like whether it's Andrew Adelson or Chris Lowe or a bunch of us who were in the press box with him, always felt like he was kind of the little brother. I remember meeting him when he was still at Florida, and just it's unbelievable that it happened. I think it's heartbreaking. I looked back at the last text exchange I had, and he's telling me I'm in the ER and I have pneumonia, and I live in Los Angeles as he did.
Right.
And I said, whoa, anything I can do? And he goes, no, I got medicine and should be okay. And you just think, I mean, it's not a joke, but like Ed was like the fittest sports writer we know.
Absolutely.
And early 30s. I mean, there's a picture on Chris Lowe's Twitter page of the two of them together, and Ed looks like he's 18. Just boundless energy, and when the cliche that everybody said was just like a ray of sunshine, and that was Ed. And it's heartbreaking for his fiancée, Katie. As you mentioned, they were so good together, and I don't know if Ed realized how many people he reached. I mean, after the heartbreaking news came out, I started getting texts from football coaches about Ed, and it just, I mean, it makes you realize how small this college football world is, and God, I wish he was still here.
Unbelievable. Well, let's turn our attentions to football. You had a piece in the Athletic, which was fascinating reading. I think it got posted on December 23rd. And it's about you call it an operating system that Ed Orgeron has used. And you spent like over 100 hours with him, just sort of sorting it all out. Tell us about how the project came to be and what came from it.
Yeah, so I flew into Baton Rouge early in the week leading up to the SEC title game, and I was going to have kind of all behind-the-scenes access to go wherever I wanted to go. And early on, within the first day, I kind of realized, okay, he's sitting there on Tuesday night, not happy with how the Tuesday practice went. But at the same time, this version of Ed Orgeron, not the one that I was around during the Ole Miss days in Meat Market, has the awareness and the self-awareness to go, all right, I'm going to guard against some of my own maybe worst instincts, and I trust this team, and I trust these coaches, and I trust my players. Say, okay, this reminded me a little bit of the post-Alabama week where we didn't have a good Tuesday practice either. But they bounced back and responded well. Now, not to say all the players didn't. Rashard Lawrence has been a leader and powered through. But some of the younger players, since later in the year, maybe they're a little worn down. We're going to pull back the throttle. And to see how he manages it has been really fascinating. I mean, I talked to one of the Oklahoma staffers today, and he asked me about the piece. He goes, it was fascinating for me because here I am, I'm at OU, and I'm thinking, wow, we're really unconventional because with Lincoln Riley, we only meet twice a week as a staff. And he's like, these guys only meet once a week. That kind of blows my mind because there's so much attention to detail, but it's also like a lot of wasted time and wasted energy on some of that. And Orgeron's been savvy enough to realize, you know what, I got the right staff in place. I trust these guys, and I trust my players. And talking to a lot of his players, they really appreciate that, and that he's in tune with them. And I think that, as much as what has happened with Joe Burrow and Steve Ensminger and certainly Joe Brady, has been a real key to this rise that they've had there.
Well, and Bruce Feldman of The Athletic is with us. The thing that fascinates me, Bruce, is that, here's a coach who a year ago won 10 football games. And most football coaches who win 10 football games in a year saying, well, I may need to tweak here and there, but I don't need to do anything radical at all. But he had the two things that struck me. He had the courage to go out and say, if we're going to beat Alabama, which is the gold standard, we've got to do something different. And then to hire a guy like Joe Brady and to walk into the office of Steve Ensminger and says, here's what we're going to do. That takes courage.
It does. And I think one of the things that he doesn't get enough credit for is he has a great read on people. And I think so. He had told me a while back about Joe Brady. I had no idea how old Joe Brady was. I'd never seen who he was, and when they made this hire. And by the time I remember going down there in the spring, he had complete confidence in Joe Brady. He was like, we got a guy who has answers. And so he's bringing a lot of the Saints passing concepts, and also now they've incorporated in a bunch of different other things in the run game from different places that the O-line guy has been and everything. But I think you also hit on a point that I really tried to stress in the piece I did on The Athletic, which was Steve Ensminger. People I think maybe underestimate just how valuable he has been. I mean, he's the play caller for the bulk of this, but also I think he's the one who keeps everything running together. Joe Brady had never been a play caller. Now, he's a brilliant young coach, and he's really good with the receivers. But I think to see, there's a part of the story, and people can go to The Athletic and see it on this Friday offensive team meeting, where all the offensive players are in the hotel, and Steve Ensminger stands up for about 5 minutes in front of the team, and really gives. It was probably the most memorable thing I saw in my whole week around the team. But it's like, for as much as you're expecting one of these Newt Rockne kind of speeches, it wasn't a lot of cursing. It wasn't a lot of like blue language. It was really heartfelt, and you felt like the analogy I used was, it was like the proud dad who was talking to his child who just graduated college and was ready to attack the world. I mean, it was so confident, and I walked away, and the team came, more of the defensive players came in, and I was just like wowed by this, and looked at, then he goes over and he's superstitious. He sits in like the farthest left corner of the room in the chair, and I don't think there's a lot of ego with him relative to the rest of the coaching world. And I give credit to him because everybody in that room knows the presence Steve Ensminger has. I mean, he's the guy who's early 60s. He's been coached at a lot of places. He coached in high school at some point, the tight ends coach, before Orgeron got promoted up. And I think he has been integral in making all this thing kind of work pretty seamlessly.
Yeah. Well, it's no question that it's going seamlessly for Joe Burrow. I mean, we all saw Joe Burrow come in here, come in LSU a year ago, and he was a good player, nothing out special. But if there's ever been an offense that matched a guy's skill set, it's this offense in Joe Burrow.
Yeah, and the receivers they have, have been remarkable. The improvement they've made with Jefferson, Jamar Chase. We're seeing Thaddeus Moss, who was, remember, he transferred in, came with Matt Canada, essentially from NC State, sat out, wasn't able to get healthy, and now he's been a kind of a matchup nightmare. The offensive line has gotten dramatically better. I remember writing about Joe Brady in the offseason, and you take what you're hearing from people inside the program, but you didn't have to be the most cynical person to go, yeah, I've heard this before about LSU. I heard it 2 years ago when Matt Canada was coming in. I felt like I heard it along the way with Les, that, oh, yeah, it was going to be different. And they had all these players and all these great running backs, and they were almost winning in spite of the offense. And now to see, Joe Burrow has been remarkable. I've always said Cam Newton's the best college player I've seen. But in terms of how Joe Burrow operates this offense, I would put him up against any offense that we've seen.
Well, and here's the thing. Go back to the LSU-Texas game. He makes that incredible pass to win the football game at 3rd and 17. And what he did, I went back and looked at it again the other night, because what he did, He moved up in the pocket, and the guy was not open, and the pressure's coming, and he just sort of took 2 small steps to the left, and that gave him an opening. I mean, how many quarterbacks have the presence of mind? I don't have to run. I don't have to scramble. All I need to do is move here, and the guy's going to be open.
Yeah, our friend Daniel Jeremiah, NFL scout and everything, he said his pocket presence is the best he has seen in a long time. And I think the thing that people have now hopefully realized is Joe Burrow, never mind how great of a basketball player apparently is, but really good athlete who has given people all sorts of problems with his leg, not just in terms of the pocket presence, but also can do things to first downs like he had a couple weeks ago here against Georgia, against a really talented defense.
Really,
and I think all those pieces come together, and the composure and everything else, the improvement he's made from last year to this year is shocking.
Oh, it really is. Bruce Feldman of The Athletic with us here as we sort of wrap it up. Let's talk about the game for just a minute. You sit there and, with Oklahoma having their best pass rushers suspended, one of their best safeties, broken collarbone and all that. What's the path? What's the road if you're Oklahoma? How do you win this football game? Does it just come down to Jalen Hurts winning the game with his legs?
Well, our crew at Fox, we did 4 OU games this season, so I saw him in person a lot. And the biggest thing, Alex Grinch, who's done a really nice job as a new defensive coordinator there, he's always talking about we got to win the turnover game. That is never more critical than it's going to be in this game. They have to win the turnover. I mean, and it has to be like 4-1 kind of thing. And that's crazy because Joe Burrow doesn't throw picks, right? So they have to find a way to win the turnover game, and then they are really good in the run game. I mean, they have a really creative scheme with Bill Bedenbaugh, the run game coordinator, and obviously Lincoln Riley, and they can ride Jalen Hurts 30 times a game in this if nothing else to try to keep the offense off the field. And here's something that dawned on me. This is probably the first time since high school Jalen Hurts has been an underdog, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because he hadn't been this year, and we know when he was at Alabama, what that picture looked like. So I'm interested to see what Jalen has in store. I don't think there will be any awe factor for him about who he's facing. The question is, can this suspect OU secondary, can it hold up against Jamar Chase and Jefferson and Moss and, Racey McMath and a bunch of other, big athletic dudes in an offense that always has you on your heels because it's executed so well.
Right. Bruce Feldman of The Athletic, good, compelling stuff. Bruce, thanks for being with us.
Always a pleasure,
Good to see you, my
Thank
friend.
you.
Take care. All right, we'll be back. We're here to take your calls at 855-242-7285. This is Tony Barnhart sitting in for Paul Finebaum, and this is the Paul Finebaum Show.
Here with Joe Burrow. And Joe, you've been on a whirlwind tour picking up so many awards. So I wanted to know kind of the moment you redialed in and got back to campus, refocused on the task at hand.
Right when I got on the plane after New York, I was ready to get back to work and get back to the film room and practice.
So on the plane, did you pull out film or did you start prep right away?
Took a nap. That was me locking back in. So I got back and went straight to the film room.
Of course, you pick up a Heisman, you go back and take a nap. It's perfect. So the film work and the preparation, you guys have been busy here. How have you been able to really be locked in and focused?
It hasn't been hard. This is a playoff game. We know the magnitude of the situation. We have a lot of mature guys on the team.
So guys who film study, quarterbacks have learned how to be better at that. Tell me how you're preparing for Oklahoma's defense. They're improved.
Yeah, they're really fast. They pop on film. They have a really good coach that I know pretty well, and they're going to have a really good scheme for us, so we're going to have to be ready for it.
Your offense was rolling at the end of the season. You get this layoff. It's not too long, but how do you get that chemistry and that timing back with your wide receivers?
Yeah, you could see the rust at the beginning, last week, and we've knocked it off pretty quickly. It doesn't take that long, but we've had a couple really good practices here.
Okay, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is obviously a question mark with his injury. You guys throw to him a ton out of the backfield. I think he has 50 receptions this year. So how does that impact that kind of dump down game and that running back game?
Yeah, Clyde is one of our best players and best leaders. But I think he'll be able to play. I think he'll be just fine. Okay. He's been in the training room. He's been running around at practice, so he's been looking good.
Okay, awesome. Anything that you have learned throughout this whole process about yourself? You've been all over the news, everywhere. Like, what have you learned about yourself in the last couple of weeks?
It's a good question. I don't know. I think I'm just a ball player that likes to throw the ball around and be with the guys and have fun and play football.
Okay, I think I've learned that you're a really good three-point shooter. How did you go 10 for 12 in the three-point shootout?
You know, I had to knock off the shooting arm a little bit. You know, my guys didn't think I could play ball, but I'm a pretty decent basketball player too.
As if you needed any more credibility, how did that improve your credibility with your teammates?
They respected me a little bit more, surprisingly. They really did.
So it wasn't the Heisman, it was the three-point shooting?
It was the three-point shooting, absolutely.
I love it. Thank you, Joe.
Yep, you got it.
And welcome back to the College Football Hall of Fame here in Atlanta, Georgia. And if you haven't been here yet, shame on you. You need to get here because there's a lot of neat stuff going on. And with that, we want to introduce the guy whose job I want, the curator and historian of the College Football Hall of Fame, Kent Stevens. Kent, thanks for being with us today.
Good to see you again, Tom.
But you got some neat stuff here. Let's kind of go through it. And if you come to the Hall of Fame, you'll see some of this stuff. But you've got a memory of 9/11. I think all of us remember where we were. I was working for ESPN. I remember that. I remember we didn't play on that Saturday. But what have you brought us, the 9/11 memorabilia?
Well, what I have is at Sanford Stadium, they added another little piece to the top of the goalpost that it was on 9/11. So that was added. I don't know if they kept it there probably they kept it for the rest of the season, but that went on top of the original pad on the goalpost for that day.
Well, that is really interesting. You've also got another piece of memorabilia from the University of Georgia. I recognize this jacket right here. Vince Dooley wore that very early in his career at the beginning.
Yeah, we have a photo of Coach Dooley wearing this jacket, and you can tell that from the photograph it was very early in his career. So he kept very good care of this jacket. It looks almost brand new. It was like maybe he was preparing one day to go in the College Football Hall of Fame and donate it to us.
You better watch it. He's going to see this, and he's going to come back and get it.
Want it back.
Because it absolutely looks comfortable.
Yeah.
Fascinating photo of, now explain this to me, Bear Bryant with Amos Alonzo Stagg in the clouds. What's that about?
Well, of course, in 1981, you know, at the end of the season, they all prepared the fact that Coach Bryant was going to pass Amos Alonzo Stagg as college football's all-time winningest coach. Stagg had 314 wins, and when Alabama beat Auburn at the close of the season, he was going to pass him to win number 315. Well, a couple of years later, the record keeping back in the days, there's Stagg up in the corner. The record keeping of the day wasn't quite what it is today, and somebody a couple years later recalculated the wins of Pop Warner, and he said, well, you know, Pop won 319 games. So Coach Bryant did get the record, but it was like, 4 games later in the 82 season.
That was fascinating. Well, we're here in Atlanta, Georgia. Georgia Tech is just down the road here. Bobby Dodd is obviously a legend here,
certainly,
for what he did at Georgia Tech. But you got a jersey from Coach Dodd's playing days, right, at Tennessee?
Yes, he was played at Tennessee 28, 29, and 30 for Coach Nealon. He was the quarterback. And it's a jersey that we hope to have restored soon. It's been rather moth-eaten down through the years, and we have some people that do some restoration work for us. We had, for example, before we moved here, we had the Red Grange jersey restored, and that's pretty much number one on our list to have restored. And it's amazing what these people can do. All those little moth holes will sort of go away. And you can't tell it from here, but in that jersey, in the elbows, are actual pads.
Right.
So the jersey was padded. And what I think is interesting about Coach Dodd, if you ever seen any film of Tennessee when they played in that era, they had the backfield had it's almost like a duck squat stance.
Yeah, I remember.
And the quarterback, and he was a quarterback, would often face the backfield, have his complete back to the opposing team. So Bobby Dodd obviously was the quarterback, but he was also a great kicker as well. And he's one of the 4 people in the Hall of Fame as both a player and the coach. Steve Spurrier's one. Amos Alonzo Stagg is the other. And another SEC Tennessee guy, Coach Bowden Wyatt, is also in the Hall of Fame, both as a player and the coach, and they're the only four.
I have seen video footage of Coach Dodd punting. He would go out there, even later on, he would teach his punters, particularly how to cough and kick. And listen, nobody could cough and kick.
Yes. Well, there was a famous game in '28 that he won on a cough and kick. They were playing Alabama, and he did a cough and corner kick that put Alabama on the 1 yard line. I think the game was tied 13-13, and Alabama had then hit a safety. So his cough and corner kicks set up a safety for Tennessee to beat Alabama in 1928, 15-13, I think.
That is fascinating. That same picture we just had, we'll show that picture again with the Bobby Dodd jersey. There's a helmet in that picture. Mm-hmm. It's an Auburn helmet from Terry Beasley.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Everybody remembers Sullivan to Beasley. Beasley, 1971, when Sullivan won the Heisman Trophy.
And it's funny that this is an era where the wishbone was introduced, just a few years ago. Before that, in Texas, and you got Bo Schembechler and Woody Hayes at Ohio State, and John McKay at Southern Cal. College football became totally run-oriented. You didn't have another quarterback winning the Heisman Trophy after Pat Sullivan until Doug Flutie in '84.
Wow!
All those years were nothing but running back. So it's interesting to me how the strategy of the game changes down through the years, and that was a perfect illustration what a strong run-oriented offense college football dominated was in that era.
Yeah, we lost Pat Sullivan not too long ago. He was what an incredible player. Mm-hmm. And Terry Beasley was one of those guys that was just. He wasn't that big, but he was incredibly fast and incredible route runner.
Yes, yeah. And like I say, it's hard to think of another great pass combination after that. Until several years down the road.
Absolutely. Now you got something here. Let me show you this right now. This is a ribbon that is right here. Okay, Tony's learned how to follow the cameras now. Okay, this is a ribbon that Billy Cannon wore at the hall at the.
Well, not so much Billy, but if you're an attendee of the Heisman ceremony in '59, you would have worn that. That's sort of like your name tag, so to speak, for going to the Heisman Trophy ceremony in 1959. And every year it would be a different color or colors based on who the winners are, and we have several in our collection. We have
How about that?
Orange one of when Ernie Davis won it in '61 at Syracuse, and Terry Baker won it in '62 at Oregon State. We have several of these in our collection.
That's just. Kent, tell us a little bit about this place. Obviously, we all remember that the previous College Football Hall of Fame was in South Bend, Indiana, and you came here when this one started. 2014
Correct,
was when you.
Right.
What has this ride been like for you? Because I got to believe it's been a labor of love.
Oh, it certainly has been. I can remember the first week I was on the job, and I get a call from Coach Eddie Robinson, and I get a call from Keith Jackson. And I'm thinking, wow.
Pretty big deal.
What have I stumbled into?
Yeah.
And it's been great ever since. I've met so many great Hall of Famers, great players and coaches, and like for example, here I get to stick my nose in books like yours every day, and I consider that to be work.
Well, thank you.
So it's been a lot of fun.
Wrote that about 10 years ago.
Yes,
Had a blast. Well, I'm honored that it's here.
Yeah.
When people come here, what do they most want to see? What are they really fascinated by?
Well, this is it's a different museum from what we had in the past. The Museum of South Bend was really history-driven, where this appeals to a much wider base of audience. My wife, strange enough, hates football, but she was here for 2.5 hours, and I felt like I was dragging her. Come on, let's go. Come on, we got to get to dinner. And so she had a wonderful time, because it's not only the history of the game, but it's the bands, the mascots, and the cheerleaders. And it's so interactive. You can take some of your experiences that you do here home with you. If you go to the game day desk and you have the mascot head put on you, there's a video of you, and you get to take that home, or you sing a fight song. So it appeals to a wider range of interests for college football fans. And hopefully if you did have just an inkling of an interest in history, maybe this will prompt you to get more involved with it.
Right. That's right. Well, it is a fascinating thing to watch because those of us who've been here a lot, you've got the playing field where you can have all kinds of events. You've got the big wall up here with how many helmets on it now? 700 plus,
like
right?
780 some.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Well, listen, we're really thrilled you could be with us here today. We've enjoyed it a lot. Kent Stevens, the curator and historian for the College Football Hall of Fame here in downtown Atlanta, Georgia. We're going to take a break. Thanks, Kent. Appreciate you.
Good to see you.
All right, we'll be back in a few minutes. We're here to take your calls at 855-242-7285. Thanks for the plug, boys and girls. This is Tony Barnhart sitting in for Paul Finebaum. This is the Paul Finebaum Show.
Call PG&E.
We know he was carted off from practice Tuesday. They said just to keep him from to walk on his hurt hamstring into the football facility. Obviously, in return to practice, these things take a couple of days, I'm told, to kind of work themselves out. And if you know the extent of an injury to a hamstring, so I really don't think they know, if he's going to be available next Saturday or not. If you had to ask me right now, I would tend to say no. I think the hope would be to get him back for the national championship game if they advance there. But they're kind of waiting to see. They're certainly talking about having to play running back by committee with the three freshmen, Tyrion Davis-Price, John Emery, and Chris Curry. He was the first team All-SEC running back. He's a run for 1,200 yards this year. He's a great pass catcher. 50 catches this season, and he is a very good blocker. And they put him. He's in the backfield with Joe. He's in the slot. They put him all the way out wide to the boundary, is when they go five wides at times. They've done that a lot this year. It's a blow, and no question. Now, of course, on the flip side, Oklahoma's down their top rushing, their top sack player and two other players who are suspended for the Peach Bowl. So maybe those things kind of balance out. I think if by committee they can kind of fill a lot of the voids, but just having a veteran like Clyde who knows where to go and what to do on every play is very important to this offense. And it would be a blow if he can't play. I think probably the best you could hope for LSU, he can kind of be like DeAndre Swift was in the SEC championship game, that you can use him on a limited basis. But that's going to be the question of the day every day next week in Atlanta, I'm sure. Again, based on the battle of attrition that you have with the two teams right now, with Oklahoma's suspensions and Clyde being a huge question mark, LSU is still close to a 2-touchdown favorite. That has not changed very much. So, Joe Burrow, I imagine they're going to have him encased in bubble wrap between now and next Saturday. Exactly. Someone taste his food, all that sort of thing. You still have all those receivers, including Jamar Chase, the Blitnikoff Award winner. And a very capable tight end in Thad Moss. So there are still a lot of weapons. And Tyrion Davis-Price did some good things at times as well too. Clyde is more of the very shifty runner. People probably remember that spin move he put on McKinney in the Alabama game to score a touchdown late in the game. Davis-Price is more the traditional-looking LSU back. Run over you, between the tackles. So they still got talent, but it's not all wrapped up into one package like it is with Clyde.
Welcome back to the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta, Georgia, where Saturday afternoon, number 1 LSU and number 4 Oklahoma in the College Football Playoff semifinals at the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Obviously, Ohio State and Clemson playing the other semifinal out in Arizona. Welcome back, folks. This is Tony Barnhart sitting in for Paul Finebaum. Paul's taking some well-deserved time off and hopes to be back in this seat soon. And the talking about Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be the number one storyline until we kick off on Saturday at 4 o'clock. And here to discuss that with us is our good friend, one of the best college football writers in the country, Mark Slabaugh of ESPN. Mr. Slabaugh, how are you doing today? Mark, are you with us?
Hey, Tony, you got me?
I got you, sir. I got you.
Okay. Happy holidays.
Mark, happy holidays to you, my friend. Let's start here. Today was media days. Obviously, Coach Ed Orgeron and everybody is going to be asked about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was not here for media day, but based on your reporting and the people you talked to, how do you think his situation stands for Saturday?
I'd say he's probably doubtful. A couple of LSU people told me he wasn't there this morning because he was getting treatment on that injured hamstring. I asked Ed what his status was for Saturday, and he said he had not practiced all week, had done some straight-ahead running yesterday, but hadn't done any cutting or practicing. They're hoping to get him more involved today. But, I get the feeling that if LSU can get by Oklahoma without him and they can get him healthy for the college football playoff championship game, that would probably be their preference.
Well, and yeah, that is the issue that has come up. But, coaches never want to admit, well, I'm going to save a player out in case I get to the national championship game. But really, the key there, Mark, is we've got, 16 days, the longest wait we've ever had from the semifinals to the finals? That's got to be a factor, does it not?
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see, what the issues, with timing on offense for all four of these teams after a layoff. But, if the kid's not 100% healthy and he's not going to be 80%, 90%, I don't think the risk is worth it putting him out there. I mean, obviously you can't take Oklahoma for granted, but, if the kid's hamstring strain is severe, then I don't think it's worth putting him out there. But there's no question, if he can't play, it's going to be a big loss for LSU because he's been such a big part of that offense with his versatility, not only running for over 1,000 yards, but I think he's got 40 catches out of the backfield, 50 catches out of the backfield, so he's one of the more productive running backs in terms of being an integral part of the passing game.
Here with Mark Slabaugh of ESPN. Mark, there's one thing, obviously Edwards-Helaire has had an incredible year, and as you mentioned, he's been one of the most versatile players in the country. But there's some talent at running back. I think about John Emery, who was the #1 high school running back in the country last year, and Price, and those are guys. They're not Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but they're pretty good football players, right?
Yeah, Emery's very, very talented. Was a 5-star guy out of Louisiana. He's got the ability to break off some big runs. I think the concern with him being a true freshman, we've seen it at times this season, is his ability to protect Joe Burrow, picking up blitzes in the backfield as much as LSU throws the ball. Price, I think, would be the #1 guy. But, pass protection is a key. I think LSU's getting a little bit lucky that Ronnie Perkins, Oklahoma's top pass rusher, is suspended for this game, so that could be a factor as well.
Right. If you're Oklahoma, Mark, what is the path? I mean, it may not be any more complicated than Jalen Hurts has got to dominate time of possession, keep the chains moving, and keep Joe Burrow and that offense on the field. Is it any more complicated than that?
You got to protect the football first and foremost, and Hurts, as good as Hurts has been, he's not taking care of the ball at times, which has put Oklahoma in some tight spots. But I was talking with a couple of their assistant coaches this morning, and they feel like there's going to be some opportunities for them to hit big plays. And you saw it in the SEC championship game. Georgia had opportunities to get the ball down the field, and for whatever reason, Georgia's receivers couldn't catch it, and Jake Fromm missed some open receivers as well. So I think this LSU secondary with Stingley and Delpit and everybody else is really, really talented. I think, the rest of the defense maybe not as quite as stout as what we've seen from LSU in the past. So I think Oklahoma, given Lincoln Riley 3 weeks to come up with a game plan, I think they're going to score some points. The question is whether or not that defense can slow down LSU.
Yeah. Mark, you've been covering college football for a while there. I knew you when you were very young and starting out in the business. But can you put into context kind of what LSU and Ed Orgeron have done this year? Because you're talking about a coach who won 10 games a year ago, and most of the time you don't make significant change when you've won 10 games the year before. But Ed Orgeron made significant changes, and he found the perfect offense for his quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, it was really the combination of everything just falling right. I think after his first year, I think Ed was under the hot seat a little bit. I think LSU took a chance on a guy that didn't have a great track record as a head coach. I think he sold them on his vision to be kind of the figurehead head coach and be a tremendous recruiter and bring players into the program. And he was going to hire 2 really good coordinators and let them do their jobs. And, it took him, I think, an extra year to bring in Joe Brady and really open up the passing game. But, I give him credit. There aren't a lot of guys out there willing to change the way they play on offense completely and turn it over to a transfer quarterback and a really young NFL analyst. It's been incredible to watch. We heard all summer that they were going to open things up and throw it all over the place. And I think you're probably a lot like me. I had to see it to believe it. And I saw it early at Texas. And with all those receivers and Joe Burrow and Joe Brady and Steve Hinsminger running the offense, it's been pretty incredible.
Well, and I wanted to ask you, we have Mark Slabaugh of ESPN with us. A situation where, Joe Burrow, a year ago when he came in from Ohio State, he was a good quarterback, but he wasn't anything special. But he meets with this offense, and suddenly Joe Burrow is as talented and as good a decision maker as we've seen at the position in a long time. And he wins the Heisman Trophy. What makes this guy special?
I think the biggest thing is just his competitive fire. He's got a chip the size of Texas on his shoulder after losing the starting job at Ohio State, and he gets rid of it quickly. The thing that has surprised me most, specifically against Georgia in the SEC championship game, was his athleticism, his ability to get out of trouble with his feet. And he always keeps his eyes downfield. And look, he's terrific. He could end up being the number 1 pick in the NFL draft if it's not Chase Young from Ohio State. But he's got a lot of weapons around him. I mean, it's hard to find a better set of receivers than Jefferson, Chase, and all those other guys. And as big as they are and as athletic as they are, he throws it up and they go get it. And that's a quarterback's best friend.
All right. Mark, before we let you go, I got to ask you about the other game, Ohio State and Clemson. I mean, I've seen people all over the map on this game where they say Ohio State's too good, Clemson's better than we think they are. They've been waiting for this, laying in the weeds. What is your take on the other semifinal game?
I think it could go either way. I give Clemson a little bit of advantage just because they've been there. Trevor Lawrence has been there. As good as Justin Fields has been, I think it's a little bit different stage in the playoff. But Ryan Day's done a tremendous job with him. We'll see, how much his mobility and scrambling ability are hampered by the knee injury. The knock on Clemson is who have they played? They've destroyed everybody, and I think they're peaking at the right time. But that one, I think, could be really, really fun to watch. I think the one we're going to be at, I worry they can get away from Oklahoma just because I don't know if they're good enough on defense to slow LSU down. But I think that game in Tempe could go down to the wire and really be a great football game.
All right. Great stuff, as always, from Mark Slabaugh. Mark, we'll see you in Atlanta later this week. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Tony.
Okay, we're going to take a break now. When we come back, we're here to take your calls at 855-242.
I think at some point when I'm done, you'll look back and there's, things that you hope that you've done. And I mean, it's hard to, there's, well over 120, 130, teams that could be here right now and only 4 are. It's so hard to get here. And so you certainly, anytime you've got a chance to win a national championship, you want to put your best foot forward and try to take advantage of those opportunities, because no matter who you are, they're not going to come every year. I mean, we've had a historic run of being able to get here, 4 out of 5 years, but that's, the numbers are against you doing that. And so I think at some point it'll be important, but right now, again, none of that matters. It's just about trying to play and coach our best. No, the games have all been different. I mean, we've we've had periods in all the games where we've played really well, and some periods where we haven't played well, and so I mean I think you've got to try to play. You know, it sounds simple, but you got to try to play as high a level as you possibly can, and then you got to understand you're playing in the playoff. Like every team is going to have the other team make runs against them, and you got to be able to handle those big momentum swings. And so I think more of learning, again, all the hype around it, the different scheduling options that you have with so much time. This year's been a little bit different in that. But, yeah, there's a lot of things we've learned through the years that we've tried to carry over. There's bits and pieces from just about every one of them. I think it's more about the different battles you've been in as a team, different big game atmospheres, important games, playing against other great players. We're getting ready. You know, this will certainly be, you know, one of the more, if not the most talented team that we've played. So they're a really good team. I think you just kind of grow throughout the year. I don't know that there's one I would sit there and say is, you know, they compare most to LSU. That's hard to say. Yeah, I can. I mean, I think a lot of it just depends on how the game unfolds, because each week can be different. But it does. I mean, when you're, you know, less breaks, you know, out there a little bit quicker, the potential to play more plays. Again, we'll test kind of the perseverance and the depth of the different defenses, but you've got to be able to do both. You know, going fast is great, but you've got to be able to mix it up. And then I think, you know, each set of coaches in the moment are, you know, going to do what they think is best to help put the whole team in position. The offense is just obviously one part of it, but it does have an impact.
All right, welcome back to Atlanta, Georgia, where Saturday we're going to have #1 LSU and #4 Oklahoma in the college football semifinal at the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, excuse me, at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Welcome back. Tony Barnhart here, sitting in for Paul Finebaum, and we're here until 7 o'clock to take your calls at 855-242-7285. This is a good time. Let's take some callers right now. Let's go to Mr. T in Ohio. Mr. T, it's Tony Barnhart.
Yeah.
How are you?
Yeah, good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Nice to be on the Mr. Finebaum show, and you're doing a great job as the guest host. Let me get right to it. It's that I happen to be an alumnus of The Ohio State University, and I wish all the participants in this best of luck. But I'm going to make a supposition. It's merely a supposition. I think Mr. Burrow is going to have such conflict when he does reach the championship game. He'll be playing The Ohio State University. He's going to play one half for LSU, and the other half he's going to change jersey. He's going to play for Ohio State.
You know, that sounds like something out of a fantasy novel. I love that. So he would play the first half. He'd play the first half for LSU and then switch jerseys at halftime and play for The Ohio State University.
There you go. He's hedged his bets. He's going to win no matter what. No, I don't think that's going to happen. I think that he broke with Ohio State, which was a bittersweet parting, although once a Buckeye, always a Buckeye. But Ed Ogeron definitely counseled and coached him in such a way that, you know, all I can say is that, the other Ohio State quarterback that they had brought in did just as good. But I think that Burrow would have been the Heisman Trophy winner and Ohio State would have been #1 if he would have stayed. But, you know, that's neither here nor there. You can't change history and going from there. But I wish them all the best. And then I also would like to say is that when it's about time for these student athletes to be paid for their particular services, and that something needs to be worked out because just to the point of I'm a former student athlete, and I know that I had a full-time job being a student athlete. It was both academics and then athletics, and I wasn't even on the same level with Division I football. I was Division I track and field, but and this is 30 years ago. But I think it needs to be changed around, and that something worked out for some sort of compensation for them to be able to do it.
Well, it's coming, Mr. T. There's no doubt about that. Thanks for calling. Please call us again next time. Let's go to Mary Ann. Mary Ann, it's Tony Barnhart. How are you?
I'm well, Tony. Happy holidays to you.
And to you as well. What are you thinking about today?
Well, first of all, what an honor and privilege it is for me to wrap up the holidays by speaking with you. I was introduced to you many, many years ago on one of my absolute favorite shows, Talking Football. And what an incredibly sad day it was when that show went off the air. I didn't have any idea what the SEC network was going to bring to the table, and that was a pleasant surprise. But I really miss you and Bob and Brady and even Mark sometimes. I learned a lot about football, and I just really appreciate it. I arranged everything around that show. I never, ever missed it. And I know today's conversations have been mainly about the top 4 teams, but I just wanted your thoughts about Tennessee's chances against Indiana. I am a die-hard Big Orange fan.
All right. Mary Ann, thank you so much. I'm sorry I'm up against a hard break. I like Tennessee's chances. I like the way they have finished. Tennessee, Georgia. We're in the College Football Hall of Fame just down the road from Mercedes-Benz Stadium, where Saturday afternoon, 4 o'clock, LSU, Oklahoma, right here in the College Football Hall of Fame. And we are pleased to be joined by my SEC Network colleague, former Florida Gator great, Mr. Chris Doering. How are you, CD?
I'm good. It's my pleasure to be here with you, TB.
Well,
you get up every Monday morning and do SEC This Morning with me and Peter Burns, so this is the least I can do, man.
Well, I appreciate that. We have a lot of fun on this show. Let's start here. Obviously, you've been watching LSU all year long. You have seen them come from that first game against Texas when we went, wow, they may be up to something here. What has been the 1 or 2 things that has impressed you the most about this run by LSU?
I know how everybody hates when analysts try to make it about themselves, but I'm going to make it about myself only to compliment LSU. And the thing that reminds me, the thing that stands out to me is this LSU team reminds me a lot of our teams in the 90s at Florida, in that it had a really creative offense that was aggressive throwing the football, led by a quarterback that was a Heisman Trophy winner, a guy that knew exactly where to go with the ball. You got talented receivers that make it difficult to match up, and then you got running backs that are a little underrated and undervalued for what they do. So it's a special group of people, and they seem like they really like to be together. The coaches, the players, they all have great camaraderie together. And even though this is kind of uncharted territory for them, they seem to handle everything as if they've been there before. Media day this morning looked like they were 100% comfortable with that kind of atmosphere. They handled going to Tuscaloosa earlier and winning that game. Right. They handled the SEC championship game easily, and I expect them to do the same here on Saturday. It's just a special group, TB.
Well, and here's the thing. People have asked me. Oklahoma's played in. This will be 3 straight semifinals they played in, and LSU hadn't been here before. I said, dude, if you can go to Tuscaloosa and win, I don't think you're going to be fazed by anything, right?
I don't think you're going to be fazed by anything, and I'm wondering if this is not a big purple and gold outing on Saturday. I mean, think about it now. Oklahoma's been in the last 3, as you mentioned. It's difficult doing that every year. LSU, those people have been passionate about showing up to support their team, get a chance to drive down the road, then a potential home game in January if they can make it to the national championship game. I bet it's going to be a pretty raucous atmosphere for the Tiger fans.
Let me ask this, and I've asked this to some other people. Is Ed Orgeron, you know this, that when Ed Orgeron got that job at LSU, I mean, look, they wanted Tom Herman. I mean, there's no doubt. They went out to Tom Herman. They didn't get him. When they didn't get him, Ed Orgeron got the job. And people just, oh, are you kidding me? This guy's a defensive line coach, and he talks funny. And how's it going to work? Why? What has Ed Orgeron done to make this thing work?
Well, first of all, that old Garth Brooks song, Thank Goodness for Unanswered Prayers or whatever it is, man, these guys all had different plans, whether we're talking about Orgeron potentially wanting to be the head coach or thinking he was deserving to be the head coach at USC after stepping in that interim role, not getting that job. Joe Burrow not winning the job at Ohio State. All of these things, I talk about the confluence of events that have had to happen to put all of these folks in the same place at the same time, the integration of Joe Brady and what he's brought in terms of the passing game, creativity, it's just amazing, all of the things that had to happen at the perfect time with the perfect group of people. And I think they all kind of enjoy being overlooked and that old Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer island of misfit toys. Well, they found a place here where they all fit in, and they're all feeding off of that energy that Coach O brings.
We're here with the SEC Network's Chris During. Look, Chris, you played with Danny Werfel. I covered Danny Werfel. He was as cool a customer. You talk about knowing where to throw the ball and having a coach who knew what to do. So, what makes Joe Burrow special? Because, I mean, a year ago we saw him, and he was a good quarterback, but he wasn't in a system that really took advantage of his skill set, and now he is. But in your mind as a receiver, why is this guy so good?
First of all, I think Joe Burrow does what he's asked to do. And I think last year, I remember middle of the season, I did a little breakdown about Joe Burrow and him getting his team into the best plays at the line of scrimmage, particularly run plays, checking away from a safety, getting them to the right, blocking up front. I mean, it seemed like he made the most of his opportunity in that offense. Well, now that offense is expanded and asking him and allowing him to do much more. And I think he really, obviously, is a student of the game. His father's a coach. He grew up around it. I think, secondly, he's got supreme confidence. He's never really shaken. And I think he's as competitive as anybody you could ask for at the quarterback spot. So I think that, along with what I say the most valuable asset that he has, is his feet, make him a great player. The feet, the ability to slide in the pocket, allow the receivers to have an extra second to get open, and then the accuracy with which he throws the football. I mean, those guys are able to catch the ball in stride, and a lot of the yards they make are after the catch, which is a credit to the quarterback for finding the right guy and then putting where they can catch it and keep rolling without having to break stride.
On the other sideline, you've got Jalen Hurts. We're talking about a guy who, this will be the fourth playoff he's been in as a player, 3 at Alabama, 1 at Oklahoma. If somehow Oklahoma were to win this game, he would be playing in his 4th national championship game. He had his worst moment as a college football player in this building down the street. He had his best moment, or certainly one of them, beating Georgia last year in the SEC championship game. This guy, he's a cool dude now. He really is.
He is, and I think anybody that has a problem with Jalen Hurts has a problem with themselves, right? If you're not a fan of his, something's wrong with you, because the guy did everything right. He's put himself in a position now to where he's got a chance to win a national championship with another team, which, you know, I think even Alabama fans would be happy to see Jalen Hurts have a chance to win another championship. But I just think this guy is a natural-born leader. I think people that's both these quarterbacks. I mean, I think if you look at them, guys get better because they're around somebody like Jalen Hurts and Joe Burrow. And Jalen may not have played with the same judiciousness with the football that we've seen him play with at Alabama. The turnovers this year, 7 interceptions, some really untimely turnovers, not having the ball as securely when he's carrying it. Those are the things that I think confuse me a little bit, but I think at the end of the day, he's as competitive as Joe Burrow is, and the guy's got athleticism for days, as his rushing stats would certainly show you and illustrate with what he's been able to do, over 1,000 yards this season on the ground.
And when it comes right down to it, I mean, basically, if there's a path for Oklahoma to win this game, it's going to have to be something you just mentioned. Jalen Hurts has got to take care of the football, but he's also got to maintain possession and move the chains and keep Joe Burrow and that offense sitting over there.
Yeah, I think that's an important part, but I also think finishing drives with touchdowns is an important part of it too, because this, I've said it time and time again, LSU's offense not only puts pressure on the opposing defense, they put pressure on the opposing offense. If you think back to that Texas game, they were going back and forth. Texas was holding serve every time LSU was able to score. Texas answered. Well, finally, the defense forced them to kick a field goal, and they didn't hold serve in that one instance. So LSU's incredibly efficient when they get down to the red zone. More times than not, they're scoring touchdowns. So Oklahoma has to possess the football, but they got to finish when they get into the red zone with touchdowns and not field goals.
Yeah, you know, I'm always interested in interesting coaching matchups, and I got to believe that Lincoln Riley, who's one of the best offensive mind play callers of this generation, going against Dave Aranda, who's, you know, his defense has given up some yards. I understand that. but Dave Aranda is one of the very best. Just that chess match is going to be interesting to watch.
It's going to be an interesting chess match, but I also think finally for Dave Aranda, he's got his guys as healthy as they've been all season, right? Getting those guys back, the resurgence of that defense. You can point to the fact that they were disrespected when Rob Mullins talked about, wow, the LSU's defense is not as good, maybe the weak point of that team. They stepped it up after that Ole Miss game. But I think a lot of that had to do with them finally getting healthy and getting guys that are back playing with the confidence that we expected them to. I wasn't surprised they played well like they did against Texas A&M and Georgia. I was more surprised that they played poorly early in the season, given Dave Aranda and his football mind and that defense with all those great players they have on that side of the ball.
You know, it was almost like after they gave up all those yards to John Rice Plumlee. You got to put that game in perspective.
Yeah.
It came after the Alabama game, one of the biggest games they've had.
And a lot of those were in the second half when LSU had their foot on the gas for the majority of the first half.
Yeah, and so I think the LSU's defense, as you mentioned, after they got dropped in the rankings, said, okay. And they said specifically that defense was called them out right there on national television.
That might have been the worst thing that could have happened for Oklahoma, was to have that defense called out. Because I truly believe that this is a really, really good defense. They've been overshadowed. They didn't play their best. But it's like college basketball. They're playing their best at the right time in the season, and the trajectory is certainly on its way up.
So you like LSU in this game?
I do like LSU. You're telling me that LSU scores 48 points a game. Your job is to stop them. And you're down your best pass rusher, and you're down your second leading tackler and maybe your most important person in the secondary. I don't find a way that I can come up with any scenario where Oklahoma is able to win.
So LSU in New Orleans on January 13th. Who do you like to be there with them?
I like Clemson. You know, I know you can talk about them not having been tested this season, but they've certainly been tested before. And it seems like Trevor Lawrence is playing his best ball at the right time of the season as well.
All right, Chris Doering, SEC Network. Thanks for being with us, my friend. It's always
love
good to
being
see
with you, man. Thanks, Tony.
All right, take
Appreciate
care.
it, man.
All right, we'll be back after this. This is Tony Barnard sitting in for Paul Finebaum. This is the Paul Finebaum Show.
We get to know Michigan and the Wolverines and what they've done this season. Their 3 losses: Ohio State, Penn State, Wisconsin. Some people thought this season was going to spiral out of control to a 7-5, even a 6-6 number early on after the Wisconsin beatdown. They're better than I think a lot of people thought they would be of late. But look, for a Mac Jones, for instance, this is a precursor to potentially taking the reins full-time next year. Would you?
Yeah, I think it's a glimpse into the future for sure, Dari. And it's going to be interesting because now he's going to have a full allotment of time to prepare for this team, right? And one thing that I will say about a Michigan defense, if you really want to talk Michigan ball, they're going to hang their hat on physicality on defense. They're going to hang their hat on being very aggressive. Don Brown, every year, is going to dial up and have defensive schemes that are going to be problematic, okay? Now, where they could be a little vulnerable is they probably play a little bit too much man coverage, because he's going to do a lot of stunning and blitzing up front. A lot of backs are to the ball. And look, you play a lot of man coverage against these wideouts. Yeah. And if Mac Jones is on and he is efficient, it's rack yards. What are rack yards? It's run after the catch. And there's nobody in the country that I've seen in the last 2 years, barring nobody, that is better with the ball in their hands after the catch than Alabama's wideouts.
So you're telling me who we want to see play in this game?
That's right. Oh, yeah, we'd love to, right? And when you think about that, too, we talk about availability. You know, 3 of their top 4 guys, they're all draft-eligible guys. These are guys that could be considering, am I going to play in this bowl game? Even still, you still got a Jalen Waddle, right? He's definitely playing college football next season. He's a difference maker. But when you look at that defense and what they've been all season long, and you think, boy, this has been our identity. We're going to play a lot of heavy man, a lot of activity in the core. Boy, is that dangerous. When you look at what they've been in the passing game, and you mentioned Mac Jones, the other piece of it is when you look at another elite team like an Ohio State Buckeyes offense, and they ran right over Michigan. You think about Najee Harris. Is he going to be in this thing? Is he going to be dialed in? And if not, is it Brian Robinson? Who steps up in that rushing attack? I do think you'll see a full complement of the Alabama offensive front.
Welcome back to the College Football Hall of Fame here in Atlanta, Georgia. Fans are going through having a special time. If you haven't been here, you really need to come. If you're a college football fan, this is a very, very special place. And it's Saturday afternoon at 4 o'clock. The college football playoff semifinals will take place. Number 1 LSU versus number 4 Oklahoma, with the winner advancing to the national championship game in New Orleans on January 13th, and we'll see how it turns out. Now I get a chance to do one of my favorite things, to talk football to my good friend Holly Rowe. Holly, it's Tony Barnhart. How are you?
I'm so great. How are you?
I'm doing very, very well. So, listen, I know it has been a long day for you, but I'm interested to know off the top, based on the media days this morning, the people you talked to, what's your best guess about Clyde Edwards-Helaire?
I believe that it will be doubtful if we see Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He suffered a leg injury. We believe it to be a hamstring or groin type of injury in practice last week. And they just think that if they could get through this game without him, give him an additional 2 weeks rest and healing for a possible national championship game, that would be the best plan. So right now it is looking doubtful. He did miss media day today, and he did not practice. I was at LSU's practice, and they have a freshman, Ty Davis-Price, who got most of the first team reps. Guys, he's from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and I asked him about getting more playing time or possibly starting in this game, the biggest of the year for LSU, and he said he's ready. He's carrying the pride of Baton Rouge on his shoulders, so he was very confident with his abilities.
Well, Price was a highly recruited player. John Emery, for some folks, was the number 1 player in the country. So Holly, they've obviously got depth there. They're not a Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the SEC player, all SEC running back, but does it change what LSU wants to do offensively if Edwards-Helaire is not there?
I think it does change. In fact, when I asked Ed Orgeron today about it, he said we need 3 different guys to do the little bits and pieces that make up one Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Like, he is the most versatile player on this offense. And let me just tell you where this impacts them the most. He is a running back who has 1,290 yards on the season, but Tony, he has 50 receptions. All these great wide receivers for LSU, and he is 3rd on the team in catches. Now, where that has shown up is late in the season, they started figuring this matchup with Clyde Edwards-Helaire on linebackers, and the coaches told me, we really love that linebacker matchup because guys have a hard time stopping him in space. So he had gotten a lot of his catches in the last 4 games of the season. They really had found a matchup that they really liked with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And I don't know if the 3 guys that we will see in that position now are able to do just exactly that, but they will continue to have confidence in them and throw them the ball. I talked to Tyree on today, and he said, hey, I haven't dropped a ball yet in practice. So he was feeling good that he could at least have some good hands filling into that role.
Well, we've all seen what Joe Burrow has done. It's been a remarkable season, Heisman Trophy winner. It just looks, just from talking to Joe before the season, during the season, and now, nothing, Holly, phases this guy. He's been on a whirlwind tour, the awards tour, but it looks like he's ready to play this football game.
Well, I asked Joe today, how did he turn the page from the Whirlwind Awards, getting the Heisman, the Maxwell, the Davey O'Brien, every possible award? And he said, well, the first thing I did was take a nap on the airplane on the way home back to Louisiana. He said then he got into film study, got into his playbook, and really said, it hasn't been hard for me to get back in and lock in and focus. But the thing that I love about Joe, I mean, this just tells you everything you need to know about this kid. So they had this little basketball shootout thing yesterday where they're competing against Oklahoma. He said he has not had a basketball in his hands for 2 years, and he went 10 of 12 from the three-point line to help LSU win that challenge. He hasn't even shot the ball for 2 years, and he was that accurate. And that's the level of accuracy we see from him on the college football field as well.
You know, Holly, I asked this question to some other people today. I'm curious about your take on it. We've all seen a lot of great quarterbacks come through college football, but what he has done this year, and obviously what is the best offensive system for him, has been nothing short of remarkable. His decision-making is as good as I've seen.
I think his decision-making is the key because he owns this offense. He knows it inside and out. Watching him at practice today, he is directing everyone and everything. He knows what the play is designed to do. He knows what the weakness of the defense will be on every play. That's how locked in he is. And that's why we're seeing him challenge the great Colt McCoy's completion percentage record.
Right.
He's going to possibly make NCAA history as the best decision maker of all time with that completion percentage. He's on pace to do that. But the other thing that Joe Burrow has going for him is he has some really special wide receivers. I was at practice today, and I actually got to stand in one of the drills that they do with Coach Joe Brady, and you are fast getting caught, like 3 different tennis balls coming at you while he asks you questions about your assignment on offense. So you have to think while you're catching, and then they do these low kind of pepper the football low ball drills, and you have to pick up the ball before it hits the ground. So I got a firsthand look at what it takes to be a great wide receiver for LSU today. He's got some really good guys catching the football for him. So Joe Burrow is wonderful and special and transcendent, but he's also got some guys on the other end that are doing a great job catching the football for him.
Well, Holly, I'll let you go with this. I mean, one of the things people have told me all day is that if there is any path for Oklahoma in this game, then Jalen Hurts has got to run the ball, move the chains, shorten the game, and more importantly, take good care of the football. You know, Dave Aranda is one of the best coordinators out there. What does that matchup look like, Aranda going against Lincoln Riley in that situation?
It's like a genius family feud, you know, like I'm going to make this chess move, I'm going to do this. It is going to be so fun to watch all those adjustments. But I will tell you this, a lot of people are making a big deal about the last time LSU faced a running quarterback in John Rice Plumlee against Ole Miss, and they gave up 700 yards of offense. Well, I talked to a bunch of the LSU defenders today, and they said, look, that was really the first time all season we had faced a rushing quarterback like that. It was a shock. They were coming off a difficult physical game against Alabama, and they said, we are in a different mindset now. So they really know that their weakness against a running quarterback was exposed, and they are all about trying to stop that. I do say, though, Jalen Hurts is a little more difficult to bring down than John Rice Plumlee, so it's a different load that they will have to handle. He's about the biggest, strongest running back in the country right now playing quarterback for the Sooners.
All right, very good. Good stuff, as always, from Holly Rowe. Holly, thanks for being with us on a long day, okay?
Do you have a College Football Hall of Fame section? I just keep waiting for the section for you to appear.
Oh, bless your heart.
Let's get on that.
All right.
Get on that.
All right. Thank you, Holly. It's good to be with you.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Take care. All right. We're going to take a break now. When we come back, we're hoping to be joined by Mr. Barrett Salih of CB.
We saw a resilient team. Of course, I was probably in the same boat as many volunteer fans, and I know you, being from Tennessee, you know, the first 2 games, you know, not knowing what we were watching. And, of course, that happens in college football. Any given day, any team can beat anyone. But to see the team go through that adversity, learn from it, and then come back and finish out the season strong, I know it was very important for the seniors. It was, of course, important for Coach Pruitt. I think it showed the young guys in the program the type of talent that they have on the team and the type of team that they can be. They're able to fight back from being down 0-2 to 2 games they should have won and still have a 5-game win streak at the end of the year and still make it to a Florida Bowl game. Then they'll definitely be able to hit the ground running the next year and continue to stack and build on their performances. So I think they're headed in the right direction. It's literally you're sitting on the tarmac at the airport and you have ESPN pulled up on your phone and you're watching it, or you're in night meetings, you have your phone turned all the way down, you just have it sitting over there, just staying tuned in. You got the ESPN updates on your watch. So I've been tuned in to every single game since I left. I know when I was up in Pittsburgh and we had like 5 or 6 balls on the team, you know, we were always talking about the game leading up to it. And then on Saturday, we were tuned in, whether it's at dinner on the big screen watching it or whether it's watching it on our phone. Of course, when you're at home, it's a little easier. You just get to go home and chill in your living room while you're off and watch it. But on the road, it can be kind of, you know, interesting. You know, you lose phone reception in the air, so you're trying to log into the internet on the plane, try and get the Wi-Fi codes to watch it. So we're definitely dedicated to watching the Volunteers every Saturday. I can promise you that. I also know Jarrett. I got a chance. He was a freshman when I was a senior, and I know the type of kid he is. And I think he showed that throughout the season, you know, bouncing back from maybe a tough outing to come out and perform well, bouncing back from injuries. He was out there playing. a week after surgery with a cast on his hand. So it shows his dedication to the sport. It shows his resiliency. It shows his toughness. And then it also shows how much he cares about his team and how much he cares about the University of Tennessee. He knows he was his best option to win, so he's going to be sure he's prepared and ready to go on Saturdays, no matter what stands in his way. So it's been great to watch him succeed, watch him to continue to play at higher levels as the weeks have surpassed. And I'll be glad to spend some time with him. I haven't gotten a chance to check in with a lot of the guys just with how crazy this year has been. But when they get down to Jacksonville, I'll be excited to spend some time with them, hang out, and just talk ball, just talk life with them. And it'll be a great reunion. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I've been ecstatic to see how they finish the year and want them to go out with a bang here in Jacksonville.
All right, welcome back to the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta, Georgia. That wall you see there is something like 738 helmets of every school, every college, everybody who plays college football. It's a 3-story window, and Barrett Sallee from CBSSports.com is somewhat imposing when you walk in, is it not?
It's intimidating. It's very intimidating. Half of them I don't even know what they are. Like you have to research to see what some of these logos are, but it's pretty awesome.
One of the neat things about it is when you come to the College Football Hall of Fame, they give you buy your ticket, they give you a lanyard, and you punch in a computer code, so that when you walk in, the lights light up to whatever school you're visiting for. So it's really cool. So how'd your holiday? Good?
It was good. It was good.
This home game for you?
A home game for me. I had the family over. Like 12, 13 of us smoked a 18-pound turkey on the Big Green Egg.
Sweet.
It was pretty solid. Extreme dad life happening at my house.
I have been threatened to get a Big Green Egg for forever.
It will change your life.
It'll change your life.
It will change
it's
your
like
life.
Satellite radio. It'll change your life.
It is the best thing you will ever buy. You can do anything you want. We did a pizza on it one time, which was phenomenal. We tried cookies. That didn't work out as great as we had thought, but at least it's possible. You can try it. But 18-pound smoked turkey. It was delicious.
All right. You made it to Media Days today?
I did.
What was your takeaway from Media Days?
Oklahoma is very disinterested in talking to all of us.
Why would that be?
They don't want to talk to us at all. LSU, I've seen LSU 5-6 times now, so like they're always personable. But Oklahoma just seemed like they didn't want to be here, and honestly, like that could be a byproduct of them taking the Jalen Hurts mindset. It's almost like that Oklahoma has been Sabanized without actually having Nick Saban on that team. So because you basically have a clone of Nick Saban at the quarterback spot. So that was my biggest takeaway, and the size. And I know, like, you come to these games and you see teams from different parts of the country, and most of the time I'm in the SEC.
Size of LSU versus size of Oklahoma.
It's like looking at varsity versus JV.
Really?
Yeah, with the exception of a few guys like Neville Gallimore and some of those guys. I mean, LSU looks like an NFL team compared to Oklahoma.
Right, exactly. Well, you sit here and obviously the discussion all day has been about Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Yeah.
And the more and more people he ain't going to play.
No, he's not.
He's not going to play. No.
If he's 85% or 80% now or whatever it is, a week and a half removed from an injury, he's not playing.
Yeah.
No way.
It sounds like they're just trying to drag it out, because if it's a hamstring and
it takes one cut.
One bad cut. And they said he had not really – he'd run straight ahead, but he'd not cut.
If he's not – if he was not cleared as of, 6 hours ago? Right. I mean, the game's not that far away, so I would imagine he's not playing, no.
Well, I just talked to Holly Rowe and asked her this, and I'll ask you that. Does it – look, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is an all-SEC running back who got really, really good in the second half of the season. The question now becomes, at LSU, you got a ton of really good players. People who, as Paul Johnson used to say, people that came highly recommended. Okay? So
he probably should have recruited those kind of players, incidentally.
No. But the question is, does it fundamentally change what LSU wants to do if he can't play?
Not necessarily, because they still want to pass to set up the run. They're not going to keep a running back in to block all that much because LSU doesn't really do that as much as they have in years past. It does change a little bit about how they operate. I think more specifically with Thaddeus Moss, because Joe Burrow has said consistently as the season has gone on that Clyde Edwards-Helaire's the MVP of the team because he provides that safety valve. If these long, slow developing routes, if he's under pressure, he knows Clyde's going to be where Clyde's supposed to be. Can you trust Davis Price or any of the other guys to do that? And the answer is probably no, because they haven't done it. But you do know that Thaddeus Moss is an extremely gifted and multidimensional talent. He can stress you up the seam at tight end, but we've seen at times him be the guy that sort of leaks out in the flat and becomes that safety valve. So I think it does change a little bit about what they do, but in reality, is it going to make a huge difference? I don't think so, because I think Clyde's best work and the most important things that he has done are close games out, specifically the Alabama game. I mean, you've stood next to him. I've stood next to him. I'm 6 feet tall. They lift him at 5'10". He ain't 5'10". He's 5'7", 5'8". And that might be generous.
He is a fire plug.
But he hits you hard. And the fact that he has that kind of ability and that kind of impact and can take over a game like that, that's what he does best, and that's what that team needs in those spots. We don't know if Davis Price or John Emery or those guys can do that.
We've been covering college football for a while now, both of us have, and we have seen quarterbacks come and develop and turn into really good players. But I'm trying to think if we've seen somebody who came in as a transfer, as a junior, and was like Burrow. He was okay. I mean, he was okay, but he wasn't anything special. And then you put him into the right offensive system to take advantage of his skill set, and boom, you got a Heisman Trophy winner who's probably going to pass for 5,000 yards in the season.
You haven't seen it to this extent, but at LSU, Zach Mettenberger's first year at LSU, he was just kind of a guy. Like kind of like Burrow was last year. The next year, I think he was the first one in LSU history to throw for 3,000, maybe second. I don't know if Jamarcus did it, but Zach had a really good senior season at LSU with Odell and Jarvis Landry. Now, there was not really a change in the system, and clearly it was not anywhere close to the level that we have this year with Joe Burrow, but it is kind of that same path where, the transfer comes in, he's just sort of okay, and then it clicks to a point where, it's a bit of a surprise for a lot of folks. So that's the one that kind of sticks out to me. I mean, Cam Newton didn't play at Florida, so you can't really count that. I mean, it's rare to have this kind of thing happen in the SEC where you just have this generational type talent evolve from somebody who has already been there and shown that really prior to that he didn't have that kind of talent.
I've asked other people this as well, and it's their take on Ed Orgeron. I mean, you're talking about a guy who was an utter failure in his first stint as a head coach, and he'll tell you that. And
yes, he will.
Has told us that because it's true.
Yeah.
And became an interim coach and didn't get the job. It was devastated by that at UCLA. And LSU, I don't care what they say, they wanted Tom Herman. Tom Herman was the guy that they wanted to get, and they didn't get him. And when Ed Orgeron was introduced, some of those people are going, are you kidding me?
This is not going to go well.
This is not going to go well. We're just going to hold on to him until we find the next guy that we really want. Why has it worked for Ed Orgeron and LSU?
He swallowed his pride and understood that stubbornness gets you fired, and stubbornness is what got Les Miles fired. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And Ed Orgeron was going down that path. And even last year, I know they went to the Fiesta Bowl, they beat UCF, but had he not changed his philosophical approach and had he not swallowed his pride, it would have been the same thing this year, I think, with Joe Burrow. It would have been a wasted year. It would have been one of those Les Miles, Jim Harbaugh style, 10 wins, get you to a New Year's Six bowl game. That's it. Right. That's the ceiling. But he recognized that the way he wants to coach football and the way he likes football to be played does not win you championships. It's the same thing that Nick Saban did with Lane Kiffin. When Nick Saban was lobbying for that silly 10-second rule to slow down offenses with Brett Bielema, he was also hiring Lane Kiffin and installing a hurry-up offense with Blake Sims, and they went to the playoff as a result. Ed Orgeron followed that same path. He recognized that, hey, you know what? I really don't like the way this football's being played right now, but I got to go find a guy who is smarter than me and that can understand exactly what needs to be done in this day and age. And so you hire a young guy, a guy who's been around the block. You take a chance on a guy who impressed you in one meeting in the offseason when the Saints came up to Baton Rouge, and you see what happens. You roll the dice, and he rolled them, and it worked.
Well, and it's hard for coaches to admit, Barrett.
You trying to say that coaches have egos?
Oh, my word. I'm just sitting there going, for him to say, I can win 10 games a year at LSU without breaking a sweat, because I got a lot of really good players.
Yeah.
But if Alabama is the gold standard in this league, I'm not going to beat Alabama because look at what they're doing. We're going to have to do something fairly radical to beat those guys. And
no doubt.
And you're right. It could have blown up in his face.
But, that's what makes what Ed Orgeron has done so impressive, is because he learned from his mistakes. And like you said, he'll tell you, Ole Miss, wholly unprepared for that job when he was the Ole Miss head coach. He was, micromanaging everything. It was long nights. It was nonstop. It was, it was leading to burnout. And I think he recognized when he got to USC how he wanted to coach. And the fact that he didn't get those chances at USC, he was devastated. I think the reason why is because he felt like he had changed. Like his approach to what needed to be done to be successful as a head coach had changed. He just wasn't getting that chance to prove it, and he finally did. And yeah, it was going in a wrong direction, but he realized it and fixed it. And so, I mean, it's been remarkable to see what he's done. And for a guy like Ed, I mean, people criticized everything about him at Ole Miss and all that stuff, but for a guy who's as humble and as self-aware and as genuine as Ed Orgeron to have this kind of success, it really is. It's nice to see, and it's good. Good things happen to good people who understand, how to treat people and how to manage, a not just a program but a way of life, a culture, and he's done a really good job of that.
So you like LSU in this game?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Is there a path for Oklahoma at all that you can see?
It's the holiday season, so praying is typically what people do. No, not really. I mean, unless Joe Burrow makes 4 or 5 mistakes,
right,
then
no
one's solved it yet. And so, I've seen LSU, like I said, 5, 6 times this year. I think this is my 6th time. When I saw them in Austin, and they kept their foot on the gas, when every single coach in America would say, we're going to run 3 times and punt, and they went out there and they still kept their foot on the gas. I mean, and that was after a game. Now, I know Texas's defense was nothing to write home about. In fact, they were awful. In that game, Joe Burrow got his teeth knocked in by Texas's defense consistently, and he stood there and he kept on keeping on. He did his thing, and if that doesn't work, if hitting him consistently doesn't work, what are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
Because the only team that's been able to slow LSU down has been Auburn, and that defensive line doesn't exist anywhere else except at Auburn.
That's right.
So unless suddenly Derek Brown and Marlon Davidson go play defensive line for Oklahoma, it ain't happening.
All right, so LSU in New Orleans, January 13th. Who's going to be there to play them?
Clemson.
Yep.
Clemson. I know we have this discussion about where they deserve to be seated, and when the playoff pairings got announced, the whole Clemson hasn't played anybody conversation needed to go away, because they might not have played anybody,
but they beat them.
But there's a reason that no one watched Clemson games in the second half, and it's not because they weren't playing anybody. It's because they were blowouts. So I think the job that Brent Venables has done this year has been remarkable. And here's the thing, too. Justin Fields is all. If it wasn't for Joe Burrow, Justin Fields would have won the Heisman in probably the biggest runaway in history. But you go back and look at the big games that he's played against big teams, their signature wins. Has he ever had to go throw for throw with a high-powered offense? Wisconsin twice. Jack Cohn is not very good. He's not exactly a superstar out there. Michigan, they're not intimidated by Michigan at all. Penn State with Sean Clifford. Okay, but is Justin Fields going to go throw for throw with Trevor Lawrence against that Clemson defense?
Good point.
No, not happening.
All right, always good stuff with my man Barrett Sallee. Thanks for joining us. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're here to take your calls at 855-242-7285. This is Tony Barnhart sitting in for Paul Finebaum. This is the Paul Finebaum Show.
this is obviously familiar territory for you, and so many people talk about that, but why is this time different?
It's just different being here with an entirely different team, getting to experience these things with a new group of guys. It's different, but I think we're ready for it, and I think we're prepared for it all.
I was just talking to one of your running backs, Kennedy Brooks, and he was like, yeah, Jalen's got some moves that can make people really get in trouble and break some people's ankles. What is it about those moves that changes this offense?
I just go out there and play. If I get loose, I try and go score. And I think the O-line does a great job of opening up different holes, and especially KB. You talk about him. I call him Pawpaw because he walks around like a little old man. But he's a great running back.
He also got the glasses too.
Yeah.
Okay, so talk to me about what this team's motivation is heading into this game. There are some doubters out there, and look, you've been doubted a good bit your entire career. So how does that fuel you?
I just think we got to control what we can control. We control our actions. We're the master of our faith, so we just got to go out there and execute and do our jobs.
When you think about this game, and it's an LSU team that you've beat twice, why are they, though, a different challenge this time around?
I'm on a different team. That's a whole different team than what I've experienced playing against. So regardless, you just got to go out there and, like I said, execute, do our jobs, regardless of what the outside thinks or whatever.
Can you believe this? I mean, here you are. You're going to have another chance at a national championship. You've transferred to Oklahoma for another opportunity. You've already won a national championship with another team. Your story just continues to be one of the favorites of everybody, but can you believe it?
I'll reflect on it all. I'll look back on it all later on in life. Right now, I can focus on winning this game.
What does Lincoln Riley say to you?
What do you mean?
Just about everything.
He doesn't say much. He wants me to go lead and win football games for him.
And then what can you say about the way that this team has responded to you as their leader? You came in, you had to win over a whole new locker room. How were you able to do that?
Yeah, just coming in and being myself. I'm very appreciative of the fact that they embraced me, put me as their leader, and kind of they allowed me to do all these things. And, I didn't come in trying to demand anything, trying to demand any type of respect. It was all earned, and I had to earn it all from them. And, we've came a long way.
One more quick one for you. I heard there's been a lot of games going on. There was like a basketball game. Have you been nailing it at all?
No, I didn't shoot. CeeDee Lamb, Tyrese Robinson, he has probably the best shot on the team. So
you were saving it all up for the game. Thanks so much, Jalen Hurts.
Thank you.
All right, welcome back to the ATL, Atlanta, Georgia. There's the sky view. That's not very far from where we are right now at the College Football Hall of Fame. And just down the road, a little bit further down the road, is Mercedes-Benz Stadium, where Saturday afternoon, 4 o'clock, number 1 LSU takes on number 4 Oklahoma in the College Football Playoff semifinal. Hi, this is Tony Barnhart sitting in for Paul. Paul's taking some well-deserved time off. And we are here to take your calls at 855-242-7285. We're going to take your calls all the way up until 7 o'clock. Please join us here on a special day at the College Football Hall of Fame. So let's go to some calls, shall we? Let's go to Cowboy in Florida. Hello, Cowboy. It's Tony Barnhart.
Hey, Tony. How you doing, man?
I am doing great. Thanks for asking. What you got on your mind today?
What I got on my mind today is thanks for taking my call, and I cannot believe I am talking to the Tony Barnhart.
Well, you're very, very kind. I think some people would say, who's Tony Barnhart? But you're very kind to say that.
Well, let me tell you this much, Mr. Tony. I've been following college football all my life. One thing, I'm a diehard Alabama fan, no doubt. I remember losing years we had, and I remember winning years. But the person I want to talk about tonight is Joe Burrow. Mm-hmm. When I watched the Heisman, I watched the show, the ceremony. When that young man, when he got up and he spoke, the things he had to say and the tears he brought from in his eyes, I do hope that everything works out for him. And I might have some Bama fans get mad, but I hope he makes it all the way because he deserves it.
Well, you're right. It was a moving thing to watch, and for him to talk about his hometown of Athens, Ohio, and the poverty rate there, and for people to turn around. I think the number is well over $500,000 that have been donated to food banks in Athens, Ohio, and other places. It was it's one of those things that's what's really good about college football. It was a great thing to watch.
Yes, sir. That's what moves a lot of people, and and I really do think in the Alabama game, I hate if we lost, but I think that was the turning moment. That when they did defeat Alabama, and at that point, they're on a mission. And Tony knows as well as I do. Throughout the years, sometimes a team comes along where they have everything, and they're hungry. I really do believe this LSU team has that. And I really do believe that they will take it all away.
Well, it's going to be fascinating to watch. And, if Joe Burrow and his folks could cap it off with a national championship, it'd be one of the best stories we've seen in a long, long time. Cowboy, I appreciate you calling. Call us again next time, okay?
Hey, I appreciate you, Tony. Thank you very much, and have a happy holiday to you and your family.
And to you as well. Let's go to Swami from Tennessee. Hi, Swami.
Hey, Tony, I always enjoy you filling in for Paul.
Well, thank you.
I wanted to ask you a question, though, Tony. A lot of people say that, Bama's just not the same on D since, Kirby's left and Jeremy Pruitt. But I think it's more, to me, as the offense they're playing right now, this up-tempo offense. I don't know any team, Tony, that plays the up-tempo offense is good on defense. I mean, is it because of the offense they face in practice, or what do you think?
It's really a couple of things, Swami. That is a factor. There's no doubt that when your team is an up-tempo offense, the defense is going to be in more positions. Sorry, Swami, welcome back as night falls here on Atlanta, Georgia. This is Tony Barnhart sitting in for Paul Finebaum, and on Saturday we've got number 1 LSU versus number 4 Oklahoma at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Glad to have you with us. We're going to be here right up until 7 o'clock to take your calls at 855-242-7285. Tony Barnhart sitting in for Paul Finebaum, who's taken a couple of deserved days off. And we're here to take your calls. And now let's go to Ed in Mississippi. Hello, Ed.
How you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. What's going on with you today?
Well, I'm like everyone else. I'm watching the last few weeks of these comparisons of the 4 teams in the finals. And the comparisons always come down to statistics. But there's one statistic that I look at that I don't see mentioned, and I think it's an important statistic, and that is as good as Joe Burrow is, the backup quarterback for LSU played in 9 games. Joe Burrow didn't play in 2.5. If you combine the quarters, he didn't play. He didn't play in almost 3 games of quarters. Put those numbers on top of what he had if it had been in the game, and all those runaway scores that Clemson has and all those runaway, what would LSU scores have been had he played the entire game? Right. And I think that just goes to say how good that LSU offense is and team is. And I don't think that if they show up and play the kind of game they can play, there's anybody that can play with them.
No, and I agree with that. No, I agree. And if they play their game and Joe Burrow has time with those great receivers, even if Clyde Edwards-Helaire does not play in the game, you've got to like LSU to win it all. And now the only way you're going to beat them, in my opinion, is look at the Auburn game. That was a 23-20 game, I think it was. If you can keep LSU into the 20s, then you got a shot. But I think if they score 30 or 30 plus, like they've done on everybody else this year, I don't see a way to beat them.
That's an interesting game, Auburn, because if you look at what Auburn and LSU are the only one to beat Alabama. But what's interesting about that is LSU and Auburn both had to score over 40 points to beat Alabama.
Right.
But, yeah. LSU beat a good Auburn team, but Auburn also scored 40 points on Alabama. So they didn't score 40 points on LSU either.
No, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. All right, Ed, I appreciate you calling. Have a happy holiday. Let's go to John in Baton Rouge.
Hey, Tony. Appreciate you taking my call.
Absolutely. What is the mood in Baton Rouge today?
Well, the sky is kind of gray, kind of down, looking far as the weather goes, but everybody's pretty excited about the ball game coming up. But I just kind of want to touch on a few things about Clyde. He seems to be the main subject about LSU's team right now, and I think it's already been touched on some, but he is really a great blocker for Joe. He really helps him protect him in the backfield, and he's one of the better receivers that he's got coming out the backfield. But also, I wanted to tell a little humorous story about Clyde. I don't know how many people realize it, but Clyde is a cowboy. He rides a horse. And I have a close friend that has a store over in the country west of Baton Rouge, and Clyde buys his horse feed over there. And here a while back, actually it was a week before the Alabama game when LSU had to buy a week before Alabama game. Clyde pulled up out there in his lot, which is just a limestone lot. And so he looked out the window, and he could see Clyde out there doing his spin moves and dipping and darting and everything. And so when Clyde came in the door, he said, Clyde, what you doing? You getting ready for Alabama, doing all those moves in my parking lot? He said, no, man. He said, that rooster you got out there was after me. He was trying to spur me. So he wasn't getting ready for Alabama. He was trying to get away from that rooster.
That's right. That's probably the best pass rush he's had on him all year. So.
Yeah, it was as close as he come to getting caught in the backfield. But I wanted to mention about the field that they're playing on. I know at the SEC championship game, they look like a bunch of hogs on ice playing on that field with all that rubberized mess on it. And I was just hoping maybe that they've got different cleats on their shoes now, or maybe they got some of that mess off the field. Because there were some injuries, some knee injuries, I believe, to some of the Georgia players on account of that mess. And then Clyde couldn't do any of his real cuts that he's really famous for. He was slipping and sliding, like I say, like hogs on ice. And I don't know if the professionals wear different shoes or what the deal is, but that was a terrible field for the SEC championship game.
Well, there's no question you've got to have the right shoes. No, there is no doubt, and that's a problem that a lot of dome stadium have, and so that's interesting.
Yeah.
All right, John, thank you for calling, my friend. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, all right, let's go to Joe in Red Bay. Hey, Joe, it's great to hear from you again.
Good afternoon, Tony. It's always a pleasure to get to see you, and I'll talk to you, but I hope you had a good Christmas, and I hope you have a very good, prosperous New Year.
Thanks, and the same to you, Joe.
I always enjoy when you're on because you're pretty knowledgeable. Paul picks on me a lot of the fans and stuff, but you don't do that. You just keep it real, and that's what I like about you. And but I'd like to give my predictions, which are thoughts on the games, which I done heard they're a little bit different from yours, but I just. I don't see Clemson hanging with Ohio State. That's the main game that if I had to go with either of these games, I think LSU and Oklahoma is going to be a toss-up. But I think Ohio State, they got enough on defense and offense. I mean, they had a player from offense and defense that was in New York for the Heisman. And, Clemson, as good as they are, they have not faced a high-powered offense all year. And they're fixing to see that in this game. And and Clemson may prove me wrong. I mean, I don't really know how good they are. I know Ohio State's good because they're undefeated and they've played some ranked teams. And Clemson is yet to they're undefeated, but they haven't played a ranked team yet. At the end of the year that was ranked anyway. And so that's my thoughts on there. And LSU, I think they're real good. And, there's no doubt about it. They wouldn't have won in Tuscaloosa. But Alabama was just a drop ball in that game and a pick six from Auburn, and we're talking a whole different playoff scenario right now. And LSU is good, but they're going to play a team that can score 40 points a game themselves. And whether they can do it against LSU, I don't know. But I have faith in Jalen Hurts because, you know, being a Bama fan, I've watched him play for you know, a few years. And I watched him this year, and they're good. And LSU, the way I see it, when Joe Burrow's gone, they're going to go back to struggling if they don't get them a good, decent quarterback. And when Joe Burrow's gone, and he's good, and he's going to make a good NFL quarterback. I'm not going to say nothing bad about him like I did with Kyler Murray last year. Joe Burrow's good, but when he's gone, LSU, they're not going to be scoring these points again. And Alabama has proved that even without Tua Tagovailoa, we can hit 40, 50 points a game, even without him. And the recruiting that Alabama's doing, we're getting these receivers and quarterbacks and linebackers. I mean, you know, whether the country wants to believe it or not, Alabama, to me, is going to be favored to be in the playoff again next year. And I think there's a very good possibility that LSU and Alabama could both make the playoff next year. But anyway, I'm looking forward to spoiling Jim Harbaugh's day and January the 1st because he's not doing good his last few bowl games, and he's sure not going to do good this year. And I just see Alabama romping them, you know, pretty good. But anyway, that's just the way I see it, you know, the way I view the playoffs and the games. And don't get me wrong, I'd like to see LSU win it for the SEC, but even if they get by Oklahoma, I don't see them beating, you know, the pass rush that Ohio State's got. I don't see them getting by that.
Well, it'll be interesting to watch. Thank you, Joe. I'm up against the break, my friend. Thanks for calling. Please call next time. We'll be back.
Thank you,
after
Tony.
taking this pause. All right. Thank you, Joe. We appreciate that. We'll be back after this. Tony Barnhart sitting in for Paul Finebaum in Atlanta, Georgia. This is the Paul Finebaum Show.
Talk to me a little bit about, after that Kansas State game, what prompted you to stand up and address the team?
Usually when adversity hits, it's all about how you respond. I mean, as a leader, I feel like it was my obligation to make a point on that runway as soon as we got off the plane. Let it be known that it's about how you respond to things like this and how do you want to be remembered. I think it was a pivotal point in our season.
That day, Jalen, when you were looking into the eyes of your teammates as you're saying those words, what were you seeing in their faces?
Starvation, a hunger, kind of a pissed off for greatness type of approach. I think one thing I've tried to do with my teammates as of lately especially is demand excellence out of everyone.
Jalen Hurts will become a graduate transfer quarterback at, wait for it, the University of Oklahoma.
I want to ask you a little bit about the transfer situation. If a player came to you and said, look, you've been through it, what advice could you give me as I'm making my own decision? What would you tell them?
Well, I will say this about my situation. It's unprecedented. The different aspects of what I did and what I went through and how I handled it will probably never happen again in college football.
From the Georgia 15, Jalen calls his own number. He is to the goal line. He is in. Touchdown! Jalen Hurts!
How much will your experience playing in playoff games, big moment games, help you moving forward now?
Well, I'll let y'all decide that. In all reality, I said this when I first came to Oklahoma. Not a game that I won at Alabama. Not a passing touchdown, rushing touchdown, not anything I did at the University of Alabama is going to help us win games, help me win games at Oklahoma. So it's a new chapter, and we'll treat it as such. I will.
How much are you looking forward to what could happen next with these next games?
You know, you got to go day by day and controlling what I can control. I can control my effort. I can control my actions, my focus, all of those things. So just focusing on what's at hand.
If I asked you, what would you like to be remembered for? What do you think it would be? What would you be most proud of hearing?
Let's reflect on it in about a month.
We are back in Atlanta, Georgia at the College Football Hall of Fame. We are indeed celebrating the 150th year of college football in the United States. This is Tony Barnard sitting in for Paul Finebaum, who's taking a little time off. Paul hopes to be back here soon. Get better, Paul. We are here to take your calls until 7 o'clock at 855-242-7285. We got some lines open right now, so give us a call. We'll be here until the top of the hour. Let's go with Cat Daddy in South Carolina. Cat Daddy, I'm so glad you called. Good to hear from you.
Hey, Tony. How you doing today? I hope you had a good Christmas. Greetings and salutations to everyone out there.
Greetings and salutations to you, my friend.
I tell you, I spent the week before Christmas on eBay. They were auctioning off a Howard Cosell toupee, and I was trying to bid on that to send to Mr. Finebaum, but a guy beat me out. I put a $170 bid on it, but a guy bid me out for $172.50, so I didn't get to be able to get it. So I'll tell Mr. Finebaum I'm sorry about that.
I know Paul hates that he missed out on that. So.
Well, Mr. Tony, here's my predictions for the bowl. LSU 45, Oklahoma 10, Ohio State 45, Clemson 10.
Oh, my. 2 blowouts.
And Memphis is going to win, too. I believe Memphis is going to win and winning bowl games out there. But that's what I believe, because I think Clemson ain't played nobody, and they're going to run into a buzzsaw when they meet the Buckeyes.
And why do you like LSU so much?
Oh, man, that Joe Burrow, come on. That guy is the next Joe Namath. He is the next, what was that boy that quarterback for San Francisco so many years? I mean, he's just a great quarterback.
Well, there's no question he's got the cool of Joe Namath. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Looks like he's got the arm of Joe Namath, too. And Joe Namath had one of the best arms I ever saw. So
I see Joe Burrow wearing a mink coat like old Joe, and they go to the Super Bowl and promise a victory. That's how cool that kid is.
There ain't no doubt. All right. So, Cat Daddy, you're predicting 2 blowouts in the semifinals, right?
Yes, I am, and it's going to be LSU taking on Ohio State, and LSU will defeat Ohio State 38-21.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I think LSU will have a little bit of a home field advantage, but you know what? The Buckeyes folks, they travel as well. I think that would be an absolutely fascinating game to watch, particularly with Joe Burrow going against Ohio State. How many great storylines are there?
You're exactly right, Mr. Tony. They are going to be – it's going to be probably one of the best games of the decade.
Well, very good. Well, Cat Daddy, I appreciate you calling. You have a happy holiday, okay?
Happy New Year!
Happy New Year, Cat Daddy. All right. Always good to hear from Cat Daddy. I always like to hear from this gentleman as well. Man, you're here.
Good afternoon, Tony. You got to love Cat Daddy call.
Well, I'm glad you called.
I mean, he talked right over Joe Montana, and you was trying to tell him, but he couldn't hear it. Bless his heart. You know, I find it interesting when the Bama fans call in, like Joe from Red Bay earlier. He broke down the LSU game, then he broke down the Clemson game, and he ended up both games with the phrase, "Well, I don't know, I'm not sure." I mean, why did he spend 5 minutes breaking down the game to tell us how good Alabama was with that fake hate with Harbaugh? What is it about the Bama fans and a fake hate with everybody in the country? If somebody else's name is mentioned, oh, I hate him, I hate him, I hate him, hate him, hate him, hate him, hate him. And, I mean, they just carry on, and they're not even in the conversation. Right now we're looking at 4 teams in the playoff, and Ohio State and Clemson kind of got there by the benefit of the doubt. Would you agree with that? They won their conference.
They won their conference, and they both went undefeated.
And LSU, Oklahoma backed in because Georgia let the South Carolina game get away from them, and had that game not got away from them, they would be in the playoff. But LSU is the team that actually earned its way into the playoff. And everybody is amazed. What happened? What happened? What turned around? What turned around? They just went out and kicked your teeth in. They didn't have to, and Tony, you're Mr. College Football for a reason. You don't have to have the number one defense to win a game. You don't have to have the number one offense. No, you just got to go out and have better opportunities than the other team and force a punt or two or maybe a turnover. And speaking of turnovers, did Joe from Red Bay say a pick six turns that Alabama game around and Alabama could be in the playoff? I mean, they gave them a spot. Early in the season, they had a 2-game season, and they failed at both attempts. And then he's coming on saying, well, we proved without Tua we can score 40 points. But 40 points ain't the problem, Joe. You needed 47 in a 46 game, and you needed 49 in a 48 game. 40 ain't enough, Joe. 48 points. Tony Barnhart, Auburn put damn near 100 on the University of Alabama. 100. You know how much that is? That's half of 100. That's almost 50. You can't get a win
That's what Steve Spurrier
with
used
40.
to do all the time. I know.
You can't get a win with 40. That's all there is to it. And you had a two-game season, and it failed miserably.
And
Tony sitting here watching it. Go ahead.
And that is the way the game has changed, man. That's the way the game has changed. You have to understand now the days of holding teams to 24 points and under and winning that way. I think those days are over. Now it may cycle back. Who knows?
It may cycle back, but maybe not in your lifetime. In my lifetime.
Yeah. Well, that's the way the game is played right now. Ed Orgeron finally came to that conclusion. Nick Saban finally came to that conclusion.
When he was at USC, he did get robbed. He had probably earned that spot, but I understand he was an interim coach, and they're thinking bigger, and it is the West Coast. And what Orgeron has done at LSU is he is LSU football. He is the perfect fit. He's probably the most perfect fit of any coach in this country, in the big boy league. And the one that's getting the notoriety that we know who he is every day. And he is LSU football. And you just got to love what LSU has done. And, I don't care if the Bama fans hate Michigan or pull for Clemson. Or, they hate anybody that ever beat them. So how can they like anybody but themselves? Because they'll tell you real quick, Tony, listen to me. How can they like anybody but themselves if they always beat themselves? Don't nobody ever beat them. They beat themselves. And like Nick Saban said, it ain't fair. It ain't fair, Tony Barnhart. We beat ourselves, and we should be there. Tony Barnhart, have a great trip to Atlanta. We love you. And when you see Paul, give that man a hamburger, and he might accidentally feel better. Have a great day.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. It's great to hear from you. All right, we'll take one more call here before the break. Let's go to Kim in Atlanta. Kim, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Hi. I watch your show. I love Paul Finebaum. I've known him for many, many years. But you need to tell these Alabama fans.
I'm sorry, say it again, Kim. Oh, sorry, Kim. All right. Sorry, Kim. Call back. We'll try again. Let's take a break now. We're here to take your calls up to the top of the hour at 855-242-7285. This is Tony Barnhart sitting in for Paul Finebaum in Atlanta, Georgia. This is the Paul Finebaum Show.
New things every day. I've been, not rushing it, just taking my time, adjusting to things, and life has been good. I'm living my dreams. I'm happy every day.
Well, you should be, and you have one of the most unique and respected head coaches in the industry. What's it like to play for Coach Tomlin?
Oh man, outstanding coach. I can tell that he truly cares about how I developed as me being a rookie right now, on and off the field. Gives great tips. A great coach. He has a different way of understanding players and their personalities, and where they came from. So, great coach.
And that is one of the storied franchises in NFL history. So I know it has to be a very interesting experience. I also know that when you play on a team like the Steelers or any other NFL team, you're so consumed with what you're doing, preparing for the next game. But I know you, and I have a feeling you've kept up with the Wildcats pretty closely.
And that's correct. I'm ride or die by my Wildcat.
As you look down the final 2 or 3 weeks of the season, what's on your mind? I mean, how do you see it ending?
I don't want to predict the future or nothing, but I'm always going to ride.
You feel pretty good about it?
I always ride for my team. So we're looking to finish these last 2 games out with a win, and we're going to see what presents itself after that.
And when the season finally ends, and I know you're not in a hurry to see it end, what will you do?
I'll either be going to the Super Bowl with my team, or I'll be, or I'll be getting ready for the next season in preparation.
So, in other words, the NFL really never ends, does it?
It really never ends. But this is what I wanted since I was a little boy. I wanted this. I wanted to be able to set an example for kids, be able to live my dream on national TV. So it never ends. This is my life. I'm happy.
What's it like, though, Benny, and I apologize for keeping you so long, but when you see young kids who want to talk to you, I mean, it's one thing to be a college football player, and you were as big a star as you could be at Kentucky, but now you're an NFL player. You're playing for an iconic franchise. That has to make you feel good when little kids stop you and either want your autograph, your picture, or ask you how they can get where you are.
Most definitely. I take it as a blessing. I take it as a blessing. I'm able to help kids with the mistakes that I made. I'm able to, lead them in the right way.
All right, we are in Atlanta, Georgia at the College Football Hall of Fame. And again, if you haven't been here, you need to come. If you're a college football fan, there is a lot here to enjoy. Tony Barnhart sitting in for Paul Finebaum, and we're here to the top of the hour at 855-242-7285 to take your calls. We are having a wonderful, wonderful time. Friday will be another day we'll have fun, and then Saturday will be the game. LSU at number 1 versus Oklahoma in the semifinals of the college football playoffs. So let's get to the top of the hour with some great calls. Let's go with Larry from Shelby. Larry, how the heck are you, Larry?
Hey, man, doing good. Old Richmond ATL sent me a picture of me and you together in Atlanta.
I remember doing the at the Fan Forum at the SEC Championship, yeah.
Yeah, man, had a great time, and my condolences goes out to Ed and his family. My God, that's too young. Lord, that's sad. But, you had a great show going. And then you got Big Mouth on there. Man. I call him High Man because that's most of the time that's what he is, high. I mean, the doobie dog hits them things and he gets on there and he can't get rid of Alabama in his head so bad. Did you hear him mention Auburn one time?
No, I think he was talking about about Alabama fans who were somewhat obsessed. I think that was what he was talking about.
Hey, we don't have no hate for Clemson. All ours is for Auburn. And the only thing saving their ass is his job, is Malzoni's job, is that he only lost 3 this year. And that's something to celebrate, man. You're only a 3-loss team, dummy. And you ain't even mentioned playing Minnesota Gophers. I wouldn't want to play no Minnesota Gophers. We're playing a top-notch team, Jack. We ain't playing some Minnesota Yankees that got their names a Gopher. You kidding me? So get off Bama. And I still got a fishing trip for him because, hey, man, You come here and I take you out on lay, your ass ain't coming back, Jack. And I'm going to tell you, LSU, without that running back, and Oklahoma, without them 3 defenders they lost, it's going to be, and I want to say something. If Paul's listening, I'm sure he is. He wanted to hear hi, man. But I'm going to tell you, he said it doesn't matter if you lose your quarterback. It don't matter if you lose defensive players. Well, guess what? I bet it does. What do you think?
To me, it's a fascinating game. First of all, it doesn't matter who you lose. I'm giving LSU a slight edge over Oklahoma because I think Oklahoma losing their best pass rusher and their second leading tackler in the secondary. You don't want to do that when you're getting ready to play one of the best offenses in the country. So I think logically you got to go with LSU.
Hey man, Paul thinks it's okay. It was okay for us to lose all our linebackers and Mosley and that's okay, Larry. Y'all still should win. And our quarterback, I hate to hear people that's hypocrites. Ain't that what you call them?
Well, it would have been a very interesting end to the season had Tua not gotten hurt. The Alabama-Auburn game was a great game. It would have been an all-timer. It just would have been fascinating to see Tua been able to play in that game.
Let me say something. It would have been, we would be there in Atlanta. I'd be sitting out there hanging out, talking to you. We would be there. And the thing about Auburn and Big Mouth, a high man, they ain't never going to be there with Malzone, never going to be there, Jack. And so get used to that high man. All right, now, over and out, and you have a good weekend, man. And I can't. No need to say roll tide. We'll save that for New Year's. For Bama.
All right, Larry. Thanks for calling. Call us again. All right. Speaking of Alabama, they're playing Michigan, and we're going to talk to AC, who's from Michigan. Hello, AC. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Good evening. How you guys doing? Happy New Year, sir.
Happy New Year to you.
Appreciate it. I would like to give a shout-out to Miss Phyllis Parkinson. Mr. Finebaum was rude enough to hang up on me a few weeks ago. I don't like the guy at all. However, this is the case, but it goes on and on. However, Ed Ashoff, my condolences and prayers are with him. He died young. I think he was at the age of 34, 35, I'm mistaken. It was
very sad.
Sudden. Yeah, it was very sad. I lost my father. It was like a long time ago, so I know kids, family members, I know exactly what they're feeling. I was in their shoes before. But Larry from Shelby calling out Iman, well, I don't know what's going on, but Larry always sounds drunk, honestly. Probably you should get sober up really quick, just like Cat Daddy. Cat Daddy. We're talking about an animal calling the show. Hey, they see the prediction man is here to give you some predictions. As far as Oklahoma is concerned, because I do have LSU to win the whole thing. As far as Oklahoma is concerned, what? Sooner Schooner? How about Sooner Loser? Because these losers, they're not going anywhere. As far as Clemson is concerned, they're not going to win the whole thing either. Ohio State and LSU, that's going to be a great game. And however, Alabama fans, your time is coming to an end. You saw it. Good luck getting Michigan. You should beat Michigan. As far as Joe is concerned, he was making fun of Trevor Lawrence. Well, Trevor Lawrence, he could get an acting career in Hollywood, Mr. Joe. So if I were you, hit the line, Bama fans. And as far as Auburn fan goes, nobody cares. You beat Alabama. Great job. Very proud of you. No one gives a damn. Oh, by the way, I forgot one more thing. Our little brothers, Texas A&M. No one gives a damn about you either. God bless you. Hook 'em horns.
All right, AC, we appreciate that. We got time to take one more, Brams. We're gonna take a break here. Augie in New Orleans. How are you, Augie?
Hey, Tony. How you doing, Tony?
I'm doing great. We're sitting here talking about ball.
Hey, sorry your Bulldogs didn't make it this year, but do you think they're going to lay an egg and embarrass the SEC this year in the Sugar Bowl? Or are they going to stand up and represent?
That is a great question. That's what people want to know, because let's face it, Georgia, they absolutely did not show up to play against Texas. Texas outplayed in the Sugar Bowl last year. They outplayed them. They outcoached them. Everybody understands that. The question is, they're playing a good team in Baylor, a team that can move the ball against a very good Georgia defense. To me, it's all about, do you want to be there?
Hey, exactly. Baylor's just one play away from being in the playoffs, let's face it. And as far as Alabama goes, they usually protest when they don't get into the college football playoffs, and they decide to embarrass the SEC by laying over against schools like Utah. So tell that guy, Legend and Squirrel, that I went into Walmart, their favorite cultural center, and they've got a ton of Alabama hats that are just sitting on the shelf. They're not selling. So hopefully Saban will get his team ready. And remember, a squirrel ain't nothing but a rat with a bushy tail. All right, Tony, you got to talk to Bama. You got to talk to your Georgia guys, because we do not want to be embarrassed, okay? Do us a favor. Thanks, Tony.
I'll do what I can, Augie. Thanks for calling.
All right, buddy. Thanks.
Let's take a break. We'll come back here to wrap this show up. This is Tony Barnhart sitting in for Paul Finebaum. This is the Paul Finebaum Show. Don't go away. Let's come finish it back. 150th year celebration of college football in America. We're so glad you joined us here today from the College Football Hall of Fame. Hope you've had a good time, and we're going to finish strong with our callers here. And our first caller in this last segment is Linda from Argo. Linda, how are you?
I'm fine, Tony B. Mac and cheese, sweet tea, Mr. CFB.
Oh, bless your heart. I'm so glad you saw that.
Listen, first of all, Paul, you get well soon. I know about those kidney stones. I had one about 15 years ago, and, man, that's no fun. So you get well soon, and we're praying for you. And Ed Ashhoff, oh, my goodness, prayers and condolences to his fiancée and his family. I want to ask you something about him, Tony, if I could.
Sure.
I've seen it, Christmas Eve late on Scott Van Pelt's show. And is his mother and dad still living, or does he have siblings?
You know what? I don't know. I knew about his fiancée, Katie. They were going to get married in New Orleans in April. But I'm afraid I don't know what family he has left. So I know whatever family he has left, they've been absolutely devastated by this. And
absolutely. That is the saddest thing. One of the saddest things I've heard this year. He was on Paul's show, quite a few times. You might have been a host and talked to him on Paul's show, and but he was just he came to ESPN in 2011, correct? So he was like 26.
Yes, he was a rising star. He went to the university. He's from Mississippi. He went to the University of Florida. Worked at the Gainesville Sun, the newspaper in there, Gainesville, Florida, and that's where people first saw him. Very, very talented writer, and then he came on board.
Yes, very talented. I loved his reporting. That reporting that you showed him doing with that LSU player, can't think, Hilaire or something like that. I've seen that today. It's been a really good show, but that's one of the saddest things. So young. It was shocking to me. So stunning and shocking to hear that about him. But my prayers do go out to them. And listen, AC from Michigan, wait until Alabama whips y'all's butts, and let's just see if you call back in. Do you think Alabama's going to beat Michigan?
I do.
I do too.
I think Alabama, for all the disappointment they had at the very end of the year, I think Alabama is going to show up and play well in this game. I think I've just gotten a sense from talking to Alabama people that they're going to be very, very motivated to make this the beginning of next year. And so we'll see. Linda, you never know about bowl games. I mean, people will say, they'll say all the right things and then all of a sudden the game starts and things don't go well, and they don't. So, to me, this is one of the more non-championship games. Alabama-Michigan is one of the more intriguing bowl games of the season.
Yes, and I do believe Alabama, not because I'm an Alabama fan, but I do believe Alabama's going to beat Michigan. So, AC, let's just see if you call in then. And the guy, Augie from New Orleans, you know, all these people talking about down on Alabama and stuff. You know, we didn't make it for the first time to the CFP. That's okay, but we're going to beat Michigan. So, AC, let's just see if you call in after we whip your butts. But listen, Tony, I'm so glad to talk to you across the board at ESPN, the ESPN network, SEC network, everyone across the board. I hope all of you and your family, Tony, and have a happy, prosperous, and healthy new year.
Thank you, Linda. I appreciate you calling. Give us a call next time. Take care.
I sure will. You too, Tony.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Let's take Jimmy from Pittsburgh. Jimmy, are you there?
Tony Barnhart, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I can hear you just fine.
Thank you. It's an honor to talk to you.
Well, the honor's mine. Thank you.
I'm 76 years old. I live in Pittsburgh 50 years. I'm from New Iberia, Louisiana. I'm a big Tiger fan. First time I saw LSU play, I was 12. Bear Bryant was coach of Texas A&M.
Wow.
I have too much to say with the amount of time you have left. Up until being on hold, listening to these people, I always thought the most obnoxious fans in the SEC were Auburn and Florida, but I'm leaning heavily towards Alabama. I even have relatives living in Tuscaloosa. And Tony, I lived in Atlanta for 7 years, so I'm glad that you show your colors. You're a Bulldog man, and I was fortunate to see LSU Georgia between the hedges in my life. There's just so many things. I'm very nervous right now talking to you.
Not at all, Jimmy.
My favorite spectator sport is college football. My next favorite sport is golf, and being 76 years old, I barely break 100 once in a while. So enough with that. But anyway, sir, it's an honor to talk to you, and I respect your opinions of college football. And being an LSU fan, I'm normally a very pessimistic. We have two kinds. You have the kind that thinks blah, 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 but I'm always afraid LSU is going to lose. I have to watch games by myself. My wife leaves the house and goes shopping. She doesn't sit with me. But I think LSU will beat Oklahoma by 3 touchdowns, and I think Clemson is a very, very good team. LSU beat Clemson 7-6 in 1959 Sugar Bowl to win the national championship. Those days are gone. I think Clemson will beat Ohio State, and unfortunately for the people in Louisiana who want Joe Burrow to face his old nemesis, it ain't going to happen. But anyway, Mr. Barnhart, what a pleasure, and I enjoy your knowledge and everything that you bring to college football.
Thank you, Jimmy. Those are very kind words from you, and I really do appreciate it. I hope you'll call back next time I host a show. Okay. All right, folks. It has been quite a day here at the College Football Hall of Fame as we get ready for the college football playoffs on Saturday, LSU versus Oklahoma. I want to thank all the callers for giving us their time today. We look forward to being back with you next time. Give us a call.
And the LSU Fighting Tigers and Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide, a loss here at Bryant-Denny.
Joe, if I had told you 2 seasons ago that you were going to beat Bama, you were going to win a Heisman, you were going to be in the playoffs, you would have said what to me?
I would have believed you. You know, I know the work that I put in up to that point, and I just felt like I needed an opportunity, and I knew the kind of players that were here, and Coach O sold me on a vision, and I knew the work that we had put in this offseason, so we totally expected to be in this position.
What advice would you give to someone who is thinking about transferring, doing what you did?
Yeah, I've actually talked to a lot of people about that, and I always tell them, make sure it's a business decision. Don't walk off the field one day when you didn't get a bunch of reps and say, screw this, I'm leaving. Take a step back and reflect and make sure that it's the best thing for you. I came to college to play football, and that's the reason I left, because I thought leaving would give me the best position to play.
Coach O, you have no idea what you mean to my family.
What is it like to make your head coach cry?
Yeah, I didn't think Coach O would ever cry, and I didn't think I would ever cry either, but that was a very emotional moment and an overwhelming moment for us.
You took a chance on me, not knowing if I could play or not.
Could you feel his emotion?
Yeah, I saw it in his face. He's a super tan guy, and he was getting a little red, and I could see he was holding it back the best he could.
And to LSU, I sure hope they give him a lifetime contract. He deserves it.
This new look offense led by Joe Burrow. Touchdown, Tigers!
LSU scoring so many points so quickly.
Joe, when did you know this offense was going to be a problem for people?
First drive against Georgia Southern.
Touchdown LSU, and electric to start.
Went right down the field, scored on an RPO, and I said, yeah, it's here. It's time to go.
LSU looks unstoppable.
How good can this offense still be?
We still got 2 more games to prove it. Our goal is to get that ring.